This be crazy.
And now, a three-time sports editor, former online and managing editor, and host of Talk That Talk, award-winning journalist Terrell Chatterbox Emerson.
Welcome to it. Welcome to it. It is a little after 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, so you guys know what time it is. It is time for Talk That Talk. I am your host, Terrell Chatterbox Emerson. It's a Monday. And typically I'm in studio as of late with a particular person. It's a Monday. This person is back. And if you guys are watching VR YouTube, you see Will Despart of the Sporting Tribune on your screen. Will, what's going on with you, brother? I don't know why does my mic sound like that now? You know what?
Sounds right to me.
Does it? Okay. Doesn't sound fine to me. We can see what happens. But how are you, brother?
Doing all right. Went to the press conference today earlier with Pete Carroll.
Oh, we're starting with that.
Let's get it.
We're starting with it. So let me go ahead and do a quick little rundown. Hold on one second. This sounds really weird to me. Not even gonna lie to you. This sounds better.
Way loud in my headphones just now, and now it sounds better.
This sounds way better, does it not? Okay. Let's double check. But welcome to it, guys. Our Monday episode, our Monday installment of the Talk That Talk radio show. This is episode 6 of season 7. Everything's loud. My applause are loud too. Godly. Episode 6 of season 7 of the Talk That Talk radio show. Here from the beautiful Harry Reid Research and Technology Park here on Sunset, here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I mentioned our YouTube. If you guys would like to watch our YouTube, all you have to do is go to YouTube, go to the search bar, type in Talk That Talk radio show. Pretty much you can do that across every platform. You can do it on Apple. You can do it on Spotify. You can do it on Instagram. You can do it on Facebook. The one thing that would be different, our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. Once again, our Twitter is at Talk That Talk LV. We got a whole lot to get to today.
Whole lot.
A grip to get to today. And we have big time WNBA news that is actually going to start off technically it's still a part of the first hour, but it's to close the first hour and it's opening the second hour. That's how packed of a show we have for you on this Monday. I do have my mom's tip in. I think my dad sent me one as well. So we'll get to all of that today. But again, man, let's get to it. It's our Monday. Let's start with the tip-in. I was sitting here thinking what else I wanted to start with. I think we can get right to it. Because you were in building, like you said before, for the press conference, the introductory press conference for new general manager and new head coach, John Spytek and Pete Carroll. I have some personal stories to get to on this particular show. Of course, if we're talking Uncle Pete, I got a story, at least one. So yeah, man, let's go ahead and get to this show. Let's get to my mom's tip-in first, and then we can get to everything else. Keep in mind, I'm keeping up with the theme, at least for January. Who knows what I'll do for February? But all tip-ins, after sex, pretty much since the inauguration, they've been Dr. King quotes. So why not just keep up with the trend? In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I'll say it again. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So shout out to my mom for that one. I'm very appreciative for that. We can get right to the press conference. I mean, there's some. First of all, this show, I've written out all these topics, right? And I've made it a point to. This one is going to be hopefully a little more structured because we have so much to talk about this can go anywhere, and this can fly all over the handle, or fly off the handle rather, and fly all over the place very quickly. So let's get to the press conference. You were actually in, like I said, you were in the building for it. What was the energy like? What was your takeaways from it? And then we can get to the individuals themselves. And obviously, I want to separate the two for a second.
It was good. It was optimistic. I mean, definitely more optimistic than I would have thought. I mean, obviously it's Uncle Pete, of course, so he's going to bring in a certain level of team building there, a certain level of expertise. But I mean, you're also dealing with the Raiders and a franchise that hasn't had many highs over the last 20 years. So I mean, it felt like the dawn of a new era, I have to say, as someone who is skeptical. And I have to say, I think this is probably going to work better than maybe the Ben Johnson hire would have hypothetically. And Mark Davis dropped a little bit of a nugget in the media availability after, and he said that they never even offered Ben Johnson a contract. So interesting.
Is that your takeaway? Is that one of your as I pop up as I pull the stream up on my phone as we speak on YouTube? But was that is that where you want to start before we get to these individuals as a whole? Just was that's the first thing you just led with right now, and I'm wondering why.
I just think they made the right choice. Like, I mean, and I think the reports that came out kind of insinuated that like they were Ben Johnson or bust at first, and then that didn't happen, and maybe that Pete Carroll was like the redheaded stepchild that they just like they had to take because they didn't want to they wanted a headline hire. But I didn't really get the sense of that today. Like, I get this feeling that they really wanted Pete and that he probably was their number one guy. And
interesting what you saying that they were that it was their number one guy. I
mean, maybe not, but
I don't want to say that.
It's out of what was left. And I mean, I do think that there was some credence to the comments that they didn't offer him a contract because his agent said the same thing. So maybe they really didn't offer him a contract. Maybe the talks just never really got as far as they were like reported to have gone.
Yeah. And so there's a couple places I want to take it, right? Since you actually started with Pete, the new head coach, right? So do you want the personal story first, or do you want me to go right into the individual aspect of it in terms of what Pete means for this team, this franchise?
I don't know. Go whatever you think works better.
All right, I'll tell the story first. I don't know if I take that back. I think I've told this story before on this platform. I went to Westchester High School, right? So I'm in LA, fresh off of. First of all, I was in LA during the Reggie years, during the Reggie, Matt Leinart, Pete Carroll years, and beyond that, right? And I remember being in high school, and Pete was on our sidelines, and again, I went to Westchester High School, so Kobe unveiled his Kobe 4 there. So there's a certain amount of attention that Westchester gets at all times, right? I'm sitting on the sideline, I'm covering the game or whatever. I look over to my right, and I'm like, all right, so for a second, this game doesn't exist. I'm gonna go meet Pete Carroll. Forgot who was even with me. Went over there with me, said something to Pete, and was like, "Hey, Pete." Pete was like, "Is he in high school?" Before he even got a word out, he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I can't risk that. Like, I can't talk to high schoolers." Say we appreciate it. About 2.5 seconds later, he turned around, kind of looked around, shook my hand, and was like, "Hi, I'm Pete Carroll." First of all, I know who you are, right? Like, and there was that awkward little moment, but Pete gave me about 2.5 minutes, maybe 5. I started to say 3, but nah, I'm gonna go ahead and say maybe. I'm gonna say maybe he gave me up to like 5 minutes. We chopped a little bit about football. Obviously told him I was a SC fan. Asked him about Reggie and just the way he talked about football and the energy around it, right? Now this is what's going to lead us into the individualism, right? As much as I love Pete, first of all, so from that aspect, there's another twist to it for me. I came on here and told the story about growing up and telling my parents about Becky Hammon. And I was like, I know you guys are Sparks fans and y'all don't really see anything outside of that, but there's this point guard in San Antonio getting shifty, and y'all should watch. Of course, my mom didn't. She never cared. My dad was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And he was like, Becky's not bad. And now I had the opportunity to cover Becky, right? And I finally told Becky that last year. And I told her I waited till year 2, 3, whatever the case may be, because I didn't want to lead with that. Like, that's not what I'm trying to lead with. So that's my entry point in terms of covering Pete. Now I get the opportunity to really get behind the curtains and see what it is in terms of Pete. Now that it's no longer high school, Terrell, right? And I got a radio show and I got a job to do. I saw this hire. I said, damn it, the man is 73 years old, right? And in saying that, I thought about my experience with Pete, and I said, I'm not going to lie. We'll see the first time we see him. And if Pete is still that Pete that I saw in high school, Pete could be 107 and he can invigorate a football team.
And that's why I don't worry about the age, because 73 for Pete Carroll is like 50 for some other guys. Like, I don't know. He's kind of like that. Like, I had a friend who had his grandpa growing up. He was like playing tennis till he was like 100 years old. And that's just, I feel like Pete Carroll's going to be that type of dude, just like on the football field, tossing it around like you see on Twitter with those clips. I think he'll be doing that when he's 90.
And that's the interesting thing, because first thing that went through my mind was he's 73 years old, right? And I don't really worry about him with today's athlete, right? But today's game is today's game. And I wonder just how much Pete is an elderly person. Let's just call it what it is, right? I just wonder what anybody's temperament. We talked about AP's temperament. He's far from a elder, from a senior citizen, but we worried about his temperament. We worried about certain people's temperament just from, do I really want to deal with this? And that's what I was wondering about Pete, right? Again, now we can get to specifics of the press conference if you want to. Pete was funny. Pete, and I'm not even in the room, but it felt like Pete commanded the room.
Oh yeah, he was.
I've been in rooms with him, obviously.
It seemed like he was all in. Like if there was, people are kind of thinking it's like maybe like a Belichick to North Carolina thing where he's just getting back to the game. Nah,
that's a little different.
He's
and I might have been wrong about Bill.
Maybe.
Might have been wrong about Bill, but Pete has already, and this is the interesting thing, because I wanted to end this by talking about the Raiders' history in Las Vegas so far, right? Just from the time that I've covered the team in person, the Josh McDaniels hire, the AP hire, and now this Pete hire. As you said before, if we're going to use a word of the day, mine would be optimism. There's a feeling, and I wasn't even physically there today. There's a feeling around this hire that just feels a little bit differently rather than the other two.
I think it's because fans and media, and even the people that were in the organization, we've seen Pete Carroll do it, and we've seen Pete Carroll do it quickly. I mean, he mentioned in the press conference that when he got to Seattle, it only took 2 or 3 years until they were Super Bowl champions.
He did say that.
And by the way, he drafted a quarterback that first season when Russell Wilson, 3rd round, right after they signed Matt Flynn to a pretty ridiculous contract in hindsight.
Indeed. Watch your mouth, ex-Packer.
My apologies.
Just saying.
He did earn that contract with. He didn't throw like 500 yards, and it was something. Doesn't
crazy, matter. Doesn't matter. Matt Flynn. I don't know how many other people. I don't want to say fleeced the contract, but for purposes of the show, he fleeced the contract because he didn't play a full season the year before. He didn't play necessarily really a half a season. He played a couple of games when Aaron went down with the broken collarbone. But in that offense, especially the way that we were juiced, Matt balled out when he was with Green Bay, and Matt would have been fine in Seattle as well. Russell just was Russell.
Yeah. And also just goes to show how quarterback needy things were in the early 2010s, where Matt Flynn was one of the top quarterbacks on the market.
You're taking shots.
I'm sorry.
That's the second one. I feel like I don't like it.
It's not a Packers shot. It's just a it's more of a Seahawks shot, honestly, if anything.
Well, they found their diamond in the rough. Yeah. So I'm sure Pete is looking at this roster right now. Who knows if he sees one?
Right now, I mean, we don't have.
You pointed to Max in the back of the building.
Max is a diamond in the rough, though. Max is a diamond out in the open.
Very true.
I mean,
It's a diamond that you have around your neck.
he had Marshawn there, which is one of his old diamonds in the rough. I mean, maybe he wasn't at that point because he was already established in Seattle when Pete got there from the Beastquake.
Right.
But when he was coming from Buffalo, it wasn't like Marshawn wasn't considered like one of the best running backs in the league at that point. He was good. He was worth the contract, but he was still like,
I feel like he was a cult favorite.
yeah.
Similar to the way we have cult favorites now for running backs.
But he was there, and it was like I mean, I'm sure you saw the clip by now, him yelling "Ray."
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what they need though. Like they need that like buy-in, even if it takes Pete Carroll to get that from a guy like Marshawn Lynch, and I'm sure it's going to happen with the other players that have like gone through the franchise. Like that's the type of buy-in you need. And I wrote a column. Now we'll get to UNLV basketball later.
Yeah, we have no choice.
But I wrote a column about them, and it's kind of like the same thing with them. Like you need buy-in first. Like buy-in might be the most important thing, whether it's from fans, players, like your organization itself. Like if you don't have that buy-in, and if you don't have people having a reason to believe, like you have nothing.
And I'm actually kind of with you because the Raiders always are going to find something to believe in. If you've been around this fan base, they're going to latch on to something. Now, again, Pete Carroll is somebody that I loved everybody's question. Shout out to Sean Zattel. I believe Adam Hill. And it was one other one. Forgot who it was. Sorry about that, guys. Who asked Pete questions about just the nature to want to do it, right? Kind of the same thing we were asking about Dan Mullen, right? Just from the standpoint of why do you want to get up off of your couch and do this? He alluded to the class that he was teaching at USC as well. But just from that standpoint, a lot of people are wondering why would a 73-year-old Pete Carroll want to do it and be the oldest NFL coach be the oldest NFL coach in history, head coach rather in history. And again, for me, I know this is a radio show, right? And people are supposed to sit here and listen to us, but I'm going to direct you to the press conference. Some things are better seen and unsaid. If you watch that press conference, as you said before, Pete is looking like the livest one in the room.
And I think, I mean, that's kind of what you come to expect with Pete. Like, as I said, you say an old person might not be a spring chicken. He's a spring chicken, man. Like, he's ready to go. And I was also impressed with Spytek, too. I think they're going to have a great dynamic between them because I think it's going to be good that you have an elder in the room like Carroll and you have a younger GM like Spytek. Like
Spytek might be the elder from another standpoint, and Pete might be the kid in the room.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. But I think that it's even going to improve the dynamic. Like they're kind of like the odd couple almost. Like that was what Carp said to me today. Like they're like that. I think it'll work. I really do. Like maybe will it be Super Bowls? Maybe not. Probably not. But they could get to the wild card round, divisional playoffs. Like I think the biggest thing we need to see is a playoff game at Allegiant Stadium before the decade is over. Like we need to see a playoff game at Allegiant Stadium, which means they're going to need to be a top 4 seed to get that, really. And I mean, that'd be huge.
So again, we're talking about this morning's press conference with Pete Carroll and John Spytek, and you said you were impressed with John Spytek, right?
I was impressed with them both.
And one you semi-expected, and if not expected outright. Now, as far as John Spytek, here's the thing, and I was gonna get to their individualism in 1 second, right? But even in speaking about the individualism, right? This is somebody who is a former scout, right? And let's just think about people who and this is what's so interesting, right? Because we talk about nepotism. I was listening to something on the way over here, and they were talking about nepotism. And I laughed and I said, let me explain to everybody, just in terms of this company, whenever I have kids, from the moment they're 4, they're carrying wires. They're going to do everything in the company because when it's all said and done and they run the company, you need experience with everything.
For sure.
Right? I think back to somebody like Eric Spoelstra, somebody who started doing film for the Heat. The man got a couple of championships with the Heat. There's something to be said about somebody who has gone through the ranks, right? And remember that Mike Mayock hire?
Yep.
Let's just that's one side. And now let's go to Today is higher. That's the other side. So there's even steps to be learned from in the hiring process since they've been here in well, obviously that was before Vegas, but since they've been here in Vegas, right? So just from that standpoint, got scouting on his resume, got a couple of different things on his resume, but he also has 2 Super Bowl championships on his resume. And this is where I want to get to a point that you made before here on the show. And one of the things that I took away from the post or from the presser was somebody asked about their history. Did you guys have any history, and whatever the case may be? And as soon as that question was asked, I was like, well, if you just look at the resume and start to line up years, he was in Denver.
Yep.
When Pete was in Seattle, putting a whooping on them in the Super Bowl. And just from that standpoint, that interaction, that felt a little different than Tom Telesco's and AP's last year, didn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean, hey,
You say but we saw the way it ended already.
yeah, like
so
I don't think it's an issue. Like I don't think it's a problem. Like I think it's like just
wait, hold on. You don't think what's the problem?
I don't know, that dynamic. Like you beat me.
You don't think that was now I got excited. You don't think that was a dynamic between AP and Tom?
No, at this time.
That's my point.
Yeah.
This one felt different just from the standpoint. This is sports. For instance, F.A. Boogity.
But also with Tom, like that loss was so embarrassing. Like I don't even like. I thought that was just.
Wait, time. Hold on.
I might be.
Now we're about to argue. Are you telling me that Tom Telesco giving up 63 points to the Las Vegas Raiders and an interim head coach was bigger than losing 43-8 in the Super Bowl?
No, but it was still like it
There's
wasn't bigger, but it was probably more embarrassing. Because I mean, we're talking about the Legion of Boom.
What's the most lopsided Super Bowl in NBA? I mean, in NFL history. That one. Let me go ahead and end all confusion.
I mean, I guess in terms of like how it happened, because there was the highest scoring offense. I don't know. I don't rate that. Like we saw what Peyton turned into in subsequent years, even though he was very good that season.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I just 63 points in an NFL game.
So here's my entire point.
How many times has 63 points been scored in a game since 1950?
I'm with you. However, my point in saying that is this is sports, right? And I told you guys at first when you said it and somebody else said it and was like, Tom didn't like that when AP said that. The room kind of laughed. And I was like, I don't think he really had too much of a. And then I went back and watched it. And I said, you know what? Maybe these guys are right. And then everything that happened throughout the course of the season played back in my mind. And I said, oh, this was a thing. Like, y'all never got over this.
I think it's a thing just in the locker room when you're commanding respect from the players, because you're in the same locker room with the players. Like that's why it's kind of different than the whole Pete Carroll spy tech thing, because that was a decade ago. Like these players,
maybe that might be the best argument.
You're not leading the players that beat you that season before. Like
the way
Telesco came into this locker room to lead a bunch of players that took his roster to the dog shed last season. And he's supposed to be the guy that's going to save the franchise. Like, I'm sorry, maybe he could go somewhere else, a different franchise, but the Raiders need someone that's an architect. And Telesco, in his time in LA, he was there for so long that like when he was an architect, it was so long before he got hired with the Raiders that it was kind of like whatever.
Now, even with you saying that, right? The point of me bringing that up was this is the sport. And the funny point is, I didn't agree with the point to begin with until you guys said it. And now I went back and looked at it and was like, maybe there's a little bit of validity to it. I'm with you. I don't think it's an issue here with these two guys. I'm talking about even the conversation or even the stillness being different. Because as I said before, the person I was going to bring up was F.A. Boogity, right? For instance, for whatever reason. He played for the Ignite. And that was one of the first situations that I remember. I was like, I've covered these teams or whatever the case may be. Even though he doesn't play South Carolina, I don't have too much to bother Asia about. We're not playing Duke. We're not playing Notre Dame. I don't have too much to bother these players about, right? I remember the year that UNLV played Washington State, at the MGM. I let him hear it all year leading up to it. just because I got to see you. I got to be around you. Just so you know, your alma mater, they suck. They're going down. And then when we lost, that man found me at Summer League. I was like, fam, like, it's my fault. I'm the reason why it happened. But just that competitiveness, right? Neither one of us have a real dog in the fight from the standpoint of coaching or GM, whatever the case may be. We understand that aspect of it. There's still business to be had here. One thing that when you guys said it, I forgot which one of you guys said it, but y'all were like, we're on the same team now. Like, we're here to do a job. And that's kind of what I got from John and Pete this particular time around. And I felt like that was different from the last introductory press conference. One more thing I want to add. We have this list here. And this is, again, if you guys are reoccurring listeners of the Talk That Talk radio show, you guys know what list I'm alluding to. It's only really one list that we allude to. The only other conversation we have continuously is asking your goats to walk away. In terms of that list, we have honest coaches, right? We might have to just have this conversation and make this list of honest front office or honest people in general. Somebody asked John about just being aggressive. I believe that was a question. It was based around being aggressive. And he said, and this is the funny part, I didn't even realize until the second thing that he mentioned were all his moves. But he was like, yeah, we'll go sign the Tom Brady. In my mind, I was like, I mean, everybody would sign Tom Brady if they had the choice. Then he was like, no, well, we'll go out and trade for a Jason Pierre-Paul. We'll go out and trade for Rob Gronkowski. We'll go out and sign a Baker Mayfield. I was like, these are his moves. Wait a minute, hold on. And he said, when I feel like our team is ready for that, we will have no hesitation in terms of doing that. My ears perked a little bit. I said, he didn't sell you guys not one dream. I have no problem going and getting somebody when need be. We're not there yet.
He's right. I mean, there's not just one hole to fix. I mean, you can get a quarterback, but like if you draft a quarterback this year in the first round, say,
you have no choice. Oh, I don't know about the first round, but you have no choice.
Like Jackson Dart, say, hypothetically. I mean, Shador and Cam are going to be off the board by the time the Raiders pick. So say the guy is Jackson Dart or someone else. He's not going to be ready to start this season. Most likely. I mean, you could give it a shot, but I mean,
in the words of Brady, these quarterbacks don't need to start right away anyway. So in a Brady-led organization,
Brady's going to push for that to happen. So now you're going to need to sign somebody, right? Unless you want to do the Aiden O'Connell trick again.
I think if Aiden knows he's the guy, that I don't think it's the bad thing. Give him a full year.
That has to be something Pete Carroll decides on, though, because
100%.
Aiden O'Connell was very much an Antonio Pierce guy in terms of like Pierce. I mean, Minshew obviously got the start, but we know after the fact Pierce wanted O'Connell to start, obviously. And I think Pierce coming back or as the regular head coach after the interim run is probably why Aiden O'Connell was even like in position to like get the starting job in the first place. But I mean,
and then we watched the film though. I mean, not to sound like that either, but it's not like, oh, it was a close battle. I mean, when they did play, Aiden looked better.
Oh, 100%. But Aiden also looked like the 30th worst quarterback in the league, and Minshew looked like the 32nd worst quarterback in the league. So
whatever is where did the team rank? So
that's true. But I mean, I don't think Pete Carroll's going to see Aiden O'Connell as someone that's going to get playing time.
So where do you go? Do you go get Jameis? Do you go fling the football around? What do you do?
Darnold.
You're making my SC Trojan heart smile right now.
Minnesota's not gonna make that offer to Darnold because they have McCarthy in the wings in that performance in the divisional round, or not even the divisional round, the wild card.
The offensive system too. I mean, they've had 3 straight years. We've done it with Kurt. We've done it with Sam. Let's see what you got, JJ.
I mean, you could probably get away with paying Darnold. Not even like after that performance, you could probably get it down. Not a bargain, but like you're not gonna have to pay top dollar what you were thinking you were gonna have to pay in Week 15 this year. So I don't know. I mean, that Darnold would be the guy I call in free agency this year. For sure. First, I wouldn't call Jameis because he's an interception magnet. Yeah.
So Pete and John appear to be off to a good start just in terms of energy, right, and excitement around the group.
But another thing that's also important, I'm sorry.
My dad is texting me saying that we can have Dak Prescott if we want him here in Vegas.
We'll take him, honestly. Like I
don't understand why he doesn't. I told Raider Nation.
I can understand.
I told Vegas that they didn't know what a bad quarterback was, and you guys were trying to push Derek Carr out of the building, out of the state. I tell my dad the same thing. Look around the league, man.
Man, send us Trey Lance.
What did you just say?
Give us something. They don't.
I almost said something. That's not okay.
Why?
I know what I was gonna say. It's not okay.
I mean, hey,
You said send us something, and you asked for Trey Lance.
it would cost.
You
what?
jumped over Cooper Rush again.
Yeah. Leave Cooper Rush. What Cooper Rush has a ceiling.
What's happening? I don't.
Trey Lance's ceiling is higher, even though his floor is astronomically lower. And if you're the Raiders, you don't care about a low floor right now.
I liked, and I'm gonna be completely honest. And this is no knock on him. This is gonna sound like it is. I sound like I have no faith in him, right? I think the Cowboys broke him.
Trey Lance.
I do.
What makes you say that?
I think the Cowboys broke him from the standpoint of Seattle. See, I almost said Seattle. Maybe it is meant for him to be here. San Francisco. I was one of those people who questioned whether they should go up that high and grab him, right?
I didn't think they should. I didn't think they were even wrong for moving on from him, really, even though it was a stupid decision to make the trade up for him in the first place. But I think that with the experience, but the thing with Trey Lance when he was coming out of college, he played like 20 college games before, in his career. That doesn't work. Like, you can't just play like 1 season, 2 seasons of college football as a 20-year-old and make that leap and go to the NFL right away and be special.
This is what I'll say. In terms of me saying that the Cowboys broke him. What did you say about Hajj Malik Williams the second half of that Boise game, and pretty much when things got murky in that LA Bowl? He didn't even look. I'm not even looking through my progressions, right? That last preseason game for Trey against the Chargers, the 5 picks.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess.
I saw that game and I text my dad and I said, congratulations. He said, what? I said, you broke him. And this is not meant to be funny, but the Orlando Magic damn near broke Markelle Fultz.
Oh,
I believe that the Washington Wizards had a good handling and helping break Kwame Brown. I think those are real things.
Markelle Fultz also had a hand in breaking himself on a motorcycle.
I'm not saying that these people didn't also play a part in it. Some bigger than other parts, but whatever the case may be, these things happen, right? And there may be contributing factors from both sides, but you can absolutely break somebody. So I'm not mad at the Darnold pick. I'm really not, but I just think about some other names too. What about a Russ?
I mean, sure, I guess, but that marriage in Seattle didn't exactly end well. So
It didn't,
you know what? No,
No,
because it's Pete Carroll. No, I don't think you want to go down that road again. If it was any other coach but Pete Carroll, sure, but then no, don't do this.
Well, we've talked about Super Bowls enough, at least for right now, at least previous Super Bowls. Let's talk about the one that we have in front of us. I almost said a week from now, but little more than a week from now, closer to 2 weeks. Super Bowl, what number are we on?
59.
Super Bowl 59. Caesars Superdome, New Orleans. My dad texted me and actually said the most lopsided Super Bowl in history.
It wasn't 43-8.
Did you look it up too?
No, but I know it was a 43-8. There was one. I mean,
say it. See if you know it.
I'm probably off. Was it the Niners in one?
It was. Okay.
Was it against the Bengals?
It was. Oh, was it the Bengals? My dad texted me, and I don't think it was. I think it was.
It wasn't.
Did he say Denver?
It might have been Denver. It might have been the first LA Super Bowl.
55-10.
Yeah.
So that was the one. So it's 45. So the other one was what, 35?
Yeah.
So that gives the idea behind. So that was the biggest Super Bowl. You said that was Elway's. So I want to know that year.
He was young.
I want to know that year. Anyway, Dad, if you know the year, you can send it to us.
80s.
But yeah, man. Let's get to it. Las Vegas tenure really quick for the Raiders before we get out of here. You had Gruden.
Yep.
You go to Bisaccia. You go to Josh McDaniels. You go to AP. Now you go to Pete Carroll. You've had 4 general managers during that time as well.
Yeah.
I'm just saying facts.
I mean, we're the Raiders, man. Like, this is what it is. Like,
I wore I'm gonna say all black, but I wore a black hoodie today, if that matters. That was the 1990, by the way.
1990. Okay, I wasn't too far off.
So Super Bowl 59, another rematch of sorts, right? Not a rematch from last year, but a rematch from a couple of years ago with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Briefly, let's break down the two title games really quick. Do you want to go through, or which one do you want to go through first?
I mean, I guess the Eagles because it was first. I mean,
If we're talking first, we got to go to the first play.
Yeah, Saquon.
God, dog, bro.
I mean, listen, hear me out.
Round of applause for running backs. The position is winning this moving forward because all you need is one season. This is all people are going to look at. I talked about Josh Jacobs earlier this year with Green Bay Packers. I think you got two more.
Someone was saying that Saquon's Giants run is going to be looked at like Drew Brees Chargers run in hindsight, and I think that's 100% true.
Wait a minute. No. I wouldn't say that.
Why not? What would
actually
what was Saquon's? What did Saquon do on the Giants?
Still with Saquon.
He was Saquon, but he was about 65% of what we see now in terms of like statistical output. This guy ran for 2,000 yards this year.
He did. He
did.
Him
2.5 years to run for 2,000 yards with the Giants with their offensive line right now.
So you even saying that is interesting.
And that game could only have gone one way, by the way. The Commanders had the 30th ranked running defense in the league. Saquon is the best running back. This version of Saquon, when was the last running back that was this good? LT 2007, Chris Johnson 2009.
That AP year was unbelievable.
12. So
but I mean, this is where I'll go with it then. If you want to, first of all, I already shouted out. My phone is blowing up. I need to turn this over. But we're shouting out the running back position, obviously, right? And I think I think the Drew Brees point, I had to go back now and look at some things since you're talking about the way it's going to be remembered statistically. But I'm viewing it from there are some people
Super Bowl,
huh?
Especially if he wins in 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. That goes without saying. But I think the reason why I'm looking at it the way I am is because I think there are people who will look at, and you might say this is the same thing for Saquon. I don't think it's necessarily the case. They'll look at Drew Brees in terms of his career, and they'll be like, "Yeah, he's a saint." Oh, remember those years as a Charger? Yeah, he's a saint. Cool. And I know you may say the same thing about Saquon, especially if he wins the Super Bowl, especially if he retires as an Eagle now. I don't feel like it'd be the same from the standpoint of, no, I saw him in New York. And I brought it, and this is why I'm not too mad at your point, because I brought it up. I mean, maybe
Drew
last
Brees
week
wasn't a bad quarterback.
That's why I said I'm going to
Pro Bowler.
That's why I said I'm going to go back and look. But being a Pro Bowler one time is different than what Saquon was doing. We were still. It's like Derrick Henry in Tennessee. You know what you're looking at in something special in a different environment. We know what Anthony Edwards is. He's in Minnesota. I don't think that changes the fact that if he goes to Chicago, if he goes to New York, if he comes to LA, if he goes to Miami, we're not going to view him as something different. He's Anthony. We see it through what we see it through. We saw Saquon as Saquon in New York. I don't know that anybody predicted that for Drew. That's my only point.
That's a fair point.
Sam Darnold was a Pro Bowler this year as well, too. Let's just talk about that.
I would say that's just like a minor distinction, though, in comparison. Like, if you're going to make a modern era comparison to what we see in terms of like a player that started out one place, but then went somewhere else after and established themselves there and their career there, I think Saquon obviously is like, I mean, it was just a tweet too.
No. It's valid for the. First of all, I think tweets start 60% of our sports conversations nowadays, but whatever. I'm not mad at the comparison. I just want to go back and look at it. The reason why I said that is because I'm not mad at your original take, because I said it Thursday, I believe. This run made me go back and watch his New York highlights. He did that with a bad O-line 4 times. Like 4 good years. He didn't have a good O-line.
Like, part of, I think, being a great running back, I mean, like an all-time running back, I should say, because there's great running backs and there's all-time running backs. This is an all-time season. It was kind of like what we saw with Genty at Boise State this year, where anywhere on the field he can go. And like Saquon, they could be at their own 7-yard line. He can go. Like there's like that.
You didn't feel that in New York?
No,
But he still had one. He had
he
one
would
straight.
do it. He would do it
He had quick
occasionally.
straight
He wasn't doing it every game.
Because I don't have an O-line, and I'm
Exactly.
still doing it.
But it's still like.
That's my point.
But now that he has the O-line and we can see it, we're gonna remember that. We're gonna remember.
It doesn't make us
yards
regret. It doesn't make us forget what he did in New York.
It's not
what I'm
that
saying
you're
is there's going to
forgetting,
be
it's
some
that
kids.
it doesn't.
What I'm saying is there's going to be
weigh
some
as much.
kids who look at Drew Brees and they don't view it. No, we're not arguing that. We're not arguing weighing as much. That's not what we're arguing.
There's going to be kids probably if Saquon does this for 5-6 more years that are born in 2017. They're not going to remember Saquon as a Giant.
No, I'm not mad at that person. If I'm not mad at
most
from that
kids
perspective,
aren't going to remember.
I grew up with Drew Brees being a Charger. I damn near only remember Drew Brees as a Saint, and I was of age when he played for the Chargers. I talk about the shoulder injury all the time. To me, next to Vic's arm, that's probably the grossest football injury I have seen.
This also takes a bit of foreshadowing, though, in what Saquon will become.
You think he's going to continue to do 2,000-yard seasons every year?
At least the next 2 years. And if he does it the next 2 years, if he gets another 2,000-yard season, one more
at any point,
he's the best running back of all time.
But again, that doesn't change anything for me from the Giant year.
Fact that
how many years did Drew spend as a? Now I'm about to look it up. Because how many years did Drew spend as a Charger versus how many? Because now I'm going to figure this out.
He was drafted in 2000.
I want to say it's 5.
He was drafted in 2000. His debut with the Saints was 2006.
So go ahead and keep making your point. I'm looking it up now because now I want to see something.
I forgot my point.
Oh, you better find one. I'm looking up the point. I'm looking up the stats real quick. See if I can get them.
I guess like the one distinction would be that you don't remember Drew Brees in San Diego at all, but like I think that's what's going to happen. Like truly, like
we won't remember him as a Giant. I think
maybe it won't be as extreme.
And I hate to be this guy too.
Like Drew was also a quarterback.
That matters.
So that's all. That's one thing. Like when you're the.
Do you know where Drew was drafted?
Like in pick wise?
Yes, I think that also matters. The reason why I'm saying that, bro, is because this is the reason why I'm saying that. When and this is gonna sound, it shouldn't sound crazy. When Saquon retires, I agree with you. He's gonna be top 5 that we can never mention, right? Especially if he continues at this trajectory. I believe Saquon's run in terms of being otherworldly, just in terms of highlight reel, you can start at Penn State. So let's just say he does end his.
I disagree.
Why? You just mentioned Genty. He's been looking.
You can go to those Penn State days, but there were times in New York where it wasn't superhuman.
I agree. But the point is,
does continuity not matter?
No, it absolutely does. That's my whole point. If I'm still, let's just say the highlights from the New York days, we know that this is a bad team. We know this is a bad franchise, and this is what my highlight reel still looks like.
But it was just a highlight reel. There was no accomplishment.
We're talking about him. We're not talking about his accomplishments, Dan. We're talking about
that's what your career is. What is your NFL career if it's not accomplishments and accolades and
again? Unfortunately, we're talking football as well.
Like if Saquon played his entire rest of the career with the Giants, he's very questionable to make the Hall of Fame. Now,
no, he's not.
If he doesn't do something statistical like this, yeah, he is. What accomplishments would you put Saquon and Barkley on the Hall of Fame on his current trajectory before this season?
So
his career high rushing yard was like 1,400 yards.
You said his entire career, though, correct?
His NFL career.
No, I'm saying if he spent its entire career with the New York, I'm asking you a question.
His entire career with the New York Giants.
I still believe Saquon Barkley to be a superhuman freak to where we saw what we saw when he was with New York. And we saw, like you said, it wasn't super frequent. We did see that 1,400
going to the Hall of Fame in New York.
We did see that 1,400-yard rush season or that 1,400 rush yard season when he had a competent O-line. Like I just mentioned, 4 of those seasons, the O-line was garbage, and we still got something from him. So at any point, this is why I felt like he had to get away from the franchise because it was not competent. So they weren't going to constantly give him a offensive line where he could produce the way that he's producing in Philadelphia. However, like you said before, if he's going to stay there his entire career, let's just say his career is 12 years?
Yeah.
Let's say 12, 13 years. Do I believe that he's going to have a 1,400 plus rush season somewhere around there 3 times? Do I believe he could do something like that? I do. Do I believe that
the Hall of Fame?
Do I believe that he would have enough statistically the rest of the way? Like we said before, Saquon would have games where he has 12 rushes, 60 yards, and then he breaks one. And in terms of highlights, he has one in terms of that game, right? But he broke that 70-yard rush, broke that 70-yard rush in the fourth quarter, and he ends up at 130.
You know who I would compare him to if he stayed his whole career with the Giants or went somewhere that wasn't Philly?
Who?
Corey Dillon.
Man, I wouldn't say that, but
Corey Dillon in the Hall of Fame?
I was about to say I like Corey Dillon, so that's the funny part. But I wouldn't compare the two. That's why I disagree.
Not like in terms of the player they are, but in terms of what like the numbers they had in the career they were like.
I mean, there's only one way to check that.
Maybe even Curtis Martin. Maybe even Curtis Martin for the Patriots when he went to the Jets.
I wouldn't agree with that one either. But I think, and again, I think some people are different. I think if we were sitting here arguing about Todd Gurley, I would probably agree with you. If we were sitting here arguing about Bijan Robinson 4 years from now, I'll probably agree with you. Saquon Barkley, like I said, remember when we started this and our round of applause for the running back room? This is going to change the way we're viewing everything moving forward. Like I said, people are going to put trust back into the running back position. We've seen it over the past couple of years, but this season is absolutely going to catapult people to doing it. Not only from Saquon, but also from what Derek, well, I was going to say was doing, but from what Derek did this year, right? Just from that standpoint alone, I feel like that is adding more credence to A, Derrick Henry, because I didn't mention his name, but B, Saquon. Those two guys are different. And that's why I think if I'm believing anything in terms of sports, which history has shown, that different guy is going to be that different guy no matter where he goes. That's my only point.
I mean, we also have to consider the fact that the Giants let this different guy walk.
Now that's fun. That's fundamentally sound in them being incompetent, which is why he had to get out of there.
But it's not
I think Saquon is a Hall of Fame player wherever he goes. That's my only point. You can't deny
the Hall of Fame caliber player, but I don't think he would have the Hall of Fame resume in New York.
You mentioned quarterback play. You mentioned quarterback play. Let's talk about Drew Brees. In terms of what he's doing with the most important guy on the football field, you leave the Chargers. You don't only win one, you only go to one. I know some Saints fans who, while they respect Drew, thanks for the Super Bowl, they feel like they grossly underachieved under Drew Brees.
They grossly underachieved because they were in the Tom Brady era.
Regardless of the reason, I'm saying, I know Bills fans this morning that do not give a damn about being in the middle of the Patrick Mahomes era. Dog, are you going to get past this guy or not? And that's my entire point. Drew Brees left and only has one. And everybody reveres him like, oh, man, he was just this great. He was in a better system. First of all, that system.
I mean, you can't just limit Drew Brees to Super Bowl championships, though. The guy threw for 5,000 yards.
I agree.
5 times, and when it was
which is what really Saquon is doing. Saquon is doing something freaky in terms of the running back position that hasn't been signed.
Didn't do in New York.
I agree. Drew didn't do it in San Diego. This is what I'm saying. That's my entire point. So let's just say Saquon wins this one. I'm comparing the two from that standpoint. It's not the same. Drew wasn't viewed as this superhuman person before he even got there. And then when he got there, it was like, okay, it's not like New Orleans gave you the superpowers.
But that's like
Saquon,
a minor distinction.
Brought them with you.
That's like a minor distinction in my opinion, because they're both
what makes them
they're
different.
NFL legends at the end of the day. Like they're both going to be Hall of Famers at the end of the day, and they wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame.
The argument that you're making about Saquon, I actually completely argue for Drew. If Drew stayed in San Diego, not only is he not.
Yeah, that's the point. That the point is that they both would not have made the Hall of Fame.
That's where I disagree. That's my only point. We're arguing because I disagree with that. That's where what accolades, if he stayed in New York, would he have assembled that would have put him in the Hall of Fame? Did he already win or would he? Do you think he would win a rush title in New York? I don't even know if he already won one. By the way, I'm not looking at it.
He didn't, but he could get one, maybe two. Was he going to rush for 2,000 yards? Was he going to rush for 1,800 yards? Was he going to even rush for 1,500 yards? Probably not.
He rushed for 4. See, you can't say probably not.
1,400 yards on a playoff team.
You're missing my point still. You said
you're acting like he ran for 1,400 yards with like a Make-A-Wish team out there. Like the Giants made the playoffs that season.
I'm aware. Let's talk about the franchise. Is it a Make-A-Wish franchise?
They've won 2 Super Bowls in the last 20 years.
And both would say it's two of the, I don't want to say, I hate saying the word lucky, but it would be argued as two of the luckier ones, regardless of the fact.
You win 2 Super Bowls in 5 years. How lucky could it possibly be?
I'm with you from the standpoint. I'm saying the way that it's viewed in terms of the way that we view this organization. Some people can say that those 2 Super Bowls are the pinnacle of the sport. They are the pinnacle of the sport. I'm talking about the back end of it. So yes, you're right. Winning 2 Super Bowls in 5 years is absolutely not a fluke. What have we seen around it? And that's my only point. And we can move on from it. We have to move on from it. But my only point was, if you're going to compare the two, I'm gonna end up going back to college highlights again, because the way that they're viewed, that's what I'm saying. Saquon is still somebody who I think the best argument for me still would be Anthony Edwards. Is Anthony Edwards going to win a championship in Minnesota? Is Anthony Edwards going to?
Anthony Edwards has a better chance of doing anything in Minnesota than Saquon Barkley did in New York.
We can move on. I completely disagree.
He just made it to the conference finals.
I don't give a damn.
He's and basketball is also where one player can impact it way more than any other sport.
And I still don't think
all Anthony Edwards needs is another star there, and another star when you're a player like Anthony Edwards is not impossible.
Are you going to get one in Minnesota?
You could with Anthony Edwards.
Are you going to get
stars in Milwaukee with Giannis?
Anthony Edwards and Giannis are the same people, or are the same person.
They have the same gravity in terms of bringing players that want to play with them.
Giannis won a championship before Dame got there, without the help.
That's a fair point, but
so that's what I'm saying. It's not the same thing. It's just not, brother. Like I said, Drew Brees going to New Orleans re-energized what you could have been. It allowed you to live up to your full potential. Saquon,
that's the same thing. It's allowing him to live up to a potential that we saw. We saw the potential, but he wouldn't have lived up to it in New York. That's the point.
I agree. Only thing we're disagreeing on is the starting points. Drew, how much in terms of percentage? And this is where I think we disagree. So once I hear the percentage, it can confirm what I believe, and we can move on. What percentage would you credit New Orleans for Drew Brees' success as a whole, and what would you credit Philly with in terms of Saquon? And I know we're only a year in, so this percentage will really interest me.
I don't think you're going to like my answer.
Well, that's the reason why we're arguing.
65.
For 70. Which one?
Both.
And that's where I disagree. I agree for about 65, 70 for Drew. For Saquon, he's been there for 1 year. I don't think anybody time out. And another thing that I think is different, nobody saw Drew Brees go to New Orleans and go, and if I'm wrong, somebody tell me. But nobody saw Drew Brees go to New Orleans, saw what he began to do and said, that's what we saw. That's what we knew would happen. Wait, hold on. Let me finish the point. So if nobody saw Drew Brees go and do that in the first year, and we said, well, we knew he was going to do that. We saw it 2 times recently. I told my dad when Matthew Stafford got to LA, Matthew Stafford is going to Matthew Stafford in LA. My dad said, nah, I seen him in Detroit. I seen him twice a year in Detroit. Watch what he does when he goes there. Most fans saw that and said, yeah, dog, that's Matthew Stafford. That's what we expect. We saw something in Saquon in New York where I do have another question, but we saw something in Saquon in New York that allowed him to get to Philly. And in one season, the man was about 8 games in. And most football fans said that's what we expected. Just from that case alone, Matthew Stafford isn't Drew Brees. Drew Brees isn't Matthew Stafford. Saquon Barkley isn't Drew Brees. Drew Brees isn't Saquon. Just from that standpoint, Saquon and Matt might be closer,
I guess, but they're all in the same category of like I don't think any of these, like, you're thinking that I was making an exact comparison.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
not really.
I'm making like a historical analogy,
type.
like what's going on. Like I'm not
type one.
Like obviously Saquon as a player is like one of the most dynamic players we've ever seen. Yeah, he was one of the most dynamic players we've ever seen in New York.
So that's my argument. That changes everything.
The point is, he would have done nothing with that in New York. He would have gotten 1,400 yards, maybe a couple more seasons. He would have probably had more injuries, and he probably would have been out of the NFL by the time he was 34 years old. Now in Philadelphia, he'll probably play another 3-4 more seasons. He'll probably play in a couple more Super Bowls. He's probably going to run for 2,000 yards again. If not, he's going to run for 1,600 yards at least again. He's going to probably do it twice. We're talking about a complete. He's going to run. Here's a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to surpass his career high for the Giants every single season he plays in Philadelphia.
You ready to marry that point?
100%.
So he goes over 1,400 yards every year in Philadelphia.
maybe maybe not the year before he retires. Every other season, 100%.
I like it. Which would also, I don't know. I feel like it adds to my original point about him being otherworldly to begin with. So my last question while we move on, really
I feel
quick.
like we're not far off from each other, but
No, we're not.
Like,
we're arguing semantics, which is what sports fans do. But my question to you before we move on was: Matthew Stafford going to be a Hall of Famer in Detroit?
I actually do think that would have been more contentious.
Piss me off, dog.
5,000-yard seasons. Matthew Stafford, if he retired in Detroit, would have still retired as a top 10 passing quarterback yardage wise in NFL history. Do you think anyone who's thrown do you think any of the top 10 most yardage quarterbacks in NFL history? I'm jumbling my words now.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been
doing.
Do
you
think
any of them should not be in the Hall of Fame if you're one of the 10 most prolific quarterbacks in terms of yardage in your career?
I think my personal preference and what's going to happen is completely different. I'm just saying, do you think Saquon Barkley would go down as a top 20 rusher all time in terms of what we know it to be if he was in New York?
I think he would go down as a top 20 rusher we've seen. He wouldn't go down as a top 20 running back career.
And that's where I think we disagree. I think Saquon would find a way to still be Saquon. But that's just where I think he would kind of be Josh Jacobs with the Raiders, just in terms of, okay, that's a bright spot. Remember that one year, or his last year here in Vegas, they stacked the box. And they literally was saying, even with Derek Carr, even with Devontae Adams, we're not letting him do it.
I think another difference between Drew Brees.
And that also needs to be addressed in New York, too. What pass catchers did they have in New York? For Saquon to be like, hey, dog, not only is this all on me, and I still did this.
Well, they had Odell his rookie year.
And he had Darren his last year.
Yeah. I don't know.
Your point? Like, that's 1 year sandwiched in between.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Lost at this point.
That's why. This is the fun part. I'm not gonna lie. Shout out to my guy doing a round of applause. I've been needing one of these. Yeah. I feel like some things, especially in Raiderland, have been kind of just written on the wall. So it's been nothing really to argue about. But we are going to argue a little bit about the Super Bowl only because I want to pick one side. You can pick the other side. We're talking about historic players and monumental players and things of that nature. Patrick Mahomes is absolutely that, right? Patrick is going for Super Bowl number 4. Am I tripping?
4, yeah.
Super Bowl number 4. Third straight, which would be the first time in NFL history that it would happen. He's already him and the Chiefs are already the first team to make the Super Bowl after winning consecutive Super Bowls. So actually we don't have to argue today in terms of, because I was about to say who do we have to pick, but we got time, so we don't have to do that. Yeah, but
I don't even know who I'd pick, honestly.
First of all, as it creeps up, it'll become clearer to you.
You know, and I don't, because I went to Phoenix the last time they played in the Super Bowl. First couple months of 2023, but 2022 season, and that game I was not sure. Like I picked the Chiefs eventually, but like I felt pretty strongly about the Eagles, and I think that's good. Like the last couple, like I would say 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls, because I would say even going into that Tampa Bay Kansas City Super Bowl 5 years ago or 4 years ago, I was very unsure. Like that was probably
super unsure.
That was maybe the most unsure I've ever been about a Super Bowl. But I lean Bucks because the defensive line.
Oh, Brady.
Defensive, not even Brady. I was a salty Patriots fan, so I was hoping Brady would lose and choke it up, even though I knew he wouldn't. But that was the part that made me
look at what us as sports fans.
The part that made me go with the Bucks that game eventually was that the Chiefs had an injury on their offensive line. And
2 of them.
The Bucks were animalistic on the defensive line for like that whole stretch. They were looking like the Rams were at the beginning.
Shout out to John Spot
for sure. But yeah, I mean, that was a game where I thought was going to go either way.
This is what I've seen since last year, right? Again, I was at the bar. Somebody asked me, who do I have for the Super Bowl, right? And this was last year. And I said, same thing I said to you. This is one of those classic analytical brain versus my heart, right? Analytical brain showed me all year long that the San Francisco 49ers were the best team in football. My gut tells me that if Patrick Mahomes is this guy, and if he's that guy that we say he is, this is when you go snatch a title that's not yours.
Yep.
And I believed more in Brock Purdy's quarterback play than I have Jalen Hurts' quarterback play this season. So from that standpoint alone, I know I just said we have about a week and a half to ponder through this.
I don't know if I agree with that. The Brock Purdy, I mean, that's obviously your take, but I would probably go with Jalen Hurts over last year's Brock Purdy.
Wait, you will go with Jalen Hurts this year?
Not in his current state with the knee injury, but yeah, I mean, just the way
him this year,
as the way he matches with Saquon. I think that's a big part of why you unlock Saquon to that degree, is because he's in an option for.
I'm not mad at that. I'm talking about solely quarterback play. I just said on Thursday I feel like Jalen Hurts. Again, going back to my baseball point, is Walker Buehler, Cody Bellinger. I don't care what anybody says. Javi Baez, y'all might be right. But going back to all of those players, I know what I saw. You can't tell me that that's a bad player, right? I know what I saw. Same thing about Jalen Hurts. I know what I saw. That man can pass the football. I watch him this year, and because it's so run dominant, run heavy, what everybody expected to happen to Lamar is actually happening in Philly. He hasn't needed his arm as much. And what did I say well, you wasn't here, but what did I say on Thursday going into this NFC Championship? You got to take some shots early, even if you don't get them. Because if you didn't ran the football for 3.5 or for 3 quarters, and now, 3.5 quarters, and now you're trying on the 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, whatever the case may be, loft a deep ball down the seam to Antonio Brown, it dropped in front of AB. Like Antonio Brown, geez Louise, AJ Brown, and I'm mad that you just let me make that mistake.
Even that slipped by me too.
But I feel like it was unfair to Jalen. Like, I've been running the football, it's snowing, and now you want me to throw it 45 yards downfield. Reason why I trusted, well, I still kind of do. I trust Brock Purdy more last year was because of the guy playing or calling plays for him.
But that's not the quarterback either. So in a way, we're both looking at a crutch here.
Maybe. Because I'm with you.
If Purdy's crutch is Shanahan, Hurts' crutch is Saquon.
Absolutely. I'm just saying arm. So I guess I do get the point.
I mean, if you were to swap both those quarterbacks, are the results really that much different?
I significantally think so.
I mean, last year, I would say maybe, that's a stupid question.
Kyle Shanahan
I disagree with myself there.
And that's funny. Because Kyle Shanahan is going to find a way to
had the
football,
thought, and
right?
then I thought about it for a second. Yeah. No.
I think Jalen's passing improves, you know what I mean? So I think that's different. And Brock definitely can't do what Jalen does in Philly just from the threat standpoint.
What I think, and Brock hasn't proven himself immune from this at all either, but I think one of the biggest issues we see with Jalen, and that affects the way he passes in some games, that he gets so banged up.
True.
Like he does the whole Josh Allen thing, but he's not 6'5", 230 pounds like Josh Allen is. And he has an injury history that Josh Allen doesn't have. And he's clearly more brittle. He moves with less force. So it's kind of like he's taking the brunt of more like hits from the defender instead of giving that force out. So I think that definitely plays a role. And I think I think Jalen Hurts is maybe less than 100% in a lot of games we see him.
That's what I feel about Embiid. So 2 Philadelphia stars. So I also think that's something to be said. Really quick,
Embiid don't even play.
What this season he's had one of his more inactive years than he's had obviously before in previous years. But really quick before you move on from football, did you hear about Dan Snyder in his comments recently?
Yeah, he deserves it.
So, guys, I haven't used the bleep button in a while, but I'm here to use it. Let's see what happens in terms of this bleep button, because this is internet radio, so I might let one fly. But I'm gonna let the original one fly because he said it. But comments came out recently that Dan Snyder said that watching the Commanders' recent success, he quote fucking hates it. So, I'm just going to tell you a couple things that I fucking hated when you ran the team. Matter of fact, let me timestamp this. So, the reason why I actually started this by being a little more animated than usual is because I hate the way that you try to memorialize the great Sean Taylor. I hate all the moments that you had, the several opportunities that you had to clean up your mess. I hate doubling down when you're wrong about a name change. I hate saying that you're going to sell the team on several occasions and then not selling. Moreno, talking to you too. But Snyder, I hate that RG3's career went the way that it did because of you. Your philosophy, the way that you think, and I still have to hear from you. While we're talking about things that we hate.
You said it all. I mean, shit. I mean, for swearing, but I mean, I have
It's
to say,
internet radio. We can get it off.
You did the beeps. You missed the beeps the first couple times. So it was
On
kinda-
purpose. Oh, I needed it, bro. Because the first when I heard that, one more, that you tried to pass that damn mannequin off as a statue. How you disrespect Sean Taylor's family.
That's true. I agree.
Fucking, he wants to tell us what he hates.
And that also ignores the
Thank
whole...
you for that argument earlier.
Hey, I take credit for the getting him fired up, but he also is a sexual predator.
You lucky. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
I did not know that.
Why do you think he sold the team? Because the workplace culture.
That's and you know what's funny? Maybe this man is a genius. Because this man has done so poorly at his job of football that is all we speak about. I completely forgot that's the reason why he no longer has his team.
He's a horrible person.
Got the nerve to talk about what he hates. Oh, by the way, that's out there now. So I guess mine's is too. Weird as hell.
Yeah, I mean, if there's someone who deserves it and who deserves the karma, like
that's so funny, bro.
I took great pleasure in hearing that quote because
it's hard to hear from him.
Like
stop talking.
I agree with that
him
point.
Enough when he was owner of the team.
I agree with that point, but if I'm gonna hear from him, I prefer to hear that he's miserable or dead.
I don't know if you can say that, but that was
really, we can't say that.
I was about to say ironically enough, and that was one of the things that I thought about bleeping out when I was speaking. But that's why I was like, I just hate the philosophy. I hate the way you think. I hate the fact that I gotta hear from you still. There's nothing positive that ever. I don't want to say ever because now I have to do some research. I do want to give the man some credit if he deserves it, but I don't remember anything positive coming from his stint. As
he doesn't, he didn't. He bought him in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like he wasn't a long time owner of this team. He bought them immediately, turned them to ashes.
I kind of hate what you did to Jason Campbell too. We don't talk about that.
I mean, yeah, you could say that about his entire tenure, really. Pick a player, pick a season, pick a situation.
That's scary. Pick a season is terrifying.
And
talk to me.
The worst part is
we're moving to basketball after this.
The worst part is, like we alluded to, what happened on the football field was nothing compared to what happened behind the scenes. What happened behind the scenes, no man should be walking free. Like,
bro, he's a monster, dog.
It's just like that's why I take pleasure in seeing like this happen because. Like I hope the Commanders win 5 Super Bowls in a row.
I didn't want to say it, but I was like, now you got me rooting for the Commanders.
Like I want them to win 5 Super Bowls.
I didn't want to root for the Commanders. Not have to.
I want this guy to be watching this sick and on his deathbed. Like
I used to own that team
on his dying days. Like this was my team back in the day, and I screwed him.
That is kind of funny. I don't know, man. I mean, like you just said before, sometimes karma is very, very obvious, and sometimes karma is very, very sweet. You know what's funny? I had just had a conversation with my dad recently. I seen somebody tweet about it. I believe it was Sabrina Merchant, as a matter of fact. There was a lot of speculation, clearly, about Jewell Loyd, right?
Yep.
And one of the things that I had just talked to my dad about before, I was like, if I'm Tyler Marsh in Chicago, anything that's not Angel Reese and Camila Cardoza, take it. You can have it. I need Jewell. I want to see what I can make work with this. My dad was like, I think the Aces get her. I said, you know what? I said, I'm not mad at that pick. I said, I don't think it's going to happen. I said, if that's the case, I said, it's KP. And even when closing this season out with the team, I called my dad after the season and I said, this this team, something has to be different at some point.
KP wanted out more than people realize.
And this is where I'm going to get to as we get to specifics. I'm not here to report on anything and say that she was unhappy, right? Unless you want to do it, but I'm not here to report.
I don't even know if it was such. I'm not gonna talk like I have like.
So this is why I want to wait till we get there, because we are going to break down certain aspects of this. We're going to break down all three teams and what they got from it. But I told my dad, I said, this team, I feel like, I said, it's weird to say, I said, but it needs a slight shakeup. I said, but it's going to be one of those. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, I think KP just played her last game in Vegas. And he was like, why? What's wrong? And I was like, nothing. Like, I don't feel like anything's wrong, but I feel like something's got to change here. And when I said that, I didn't have Jewell Loyd in mind, obviously, right? But I thought about Seattle. I thought about the University of Washington. I thought about, well, I don't know if you guys can get a head-up trade going, but that would make sense to me.
Yeah.
To see ultimately what happened in terms of this 3-team trade where Jewell Loyd comes here to Las Vegas, Kelsey Plum gets shipped to Los Angeles, and Seattle picks up the second pick. And in addition to Lee Yeru, we'll go ahead and go through all the specifics in a second of that. But I saw this trade and I said, Kelsey Plum gets her own team.
Yeah, which, I mean, I saw that trade and I said, the Sparks, what are they doing? I Kelsey's awesome. Great player, even better person. She can be the centerpiece of a team, but the Sparks, the value they got out of this trade is embarrassing. They trade the second pick, or they didn't trade the second.
No, they get the second.
They get the second pick. They give up what, the 9th pick.
So yeah, here's this the specifics from the trade. Vegas gets Jewell Loyd from Seattle and picks up the 13th pick from LA. Los Angeles gets Kelsey Plum plus the 9th pick from Seattle, and they also get a 2026 second-round pick from Seattle as well. The Storm get the second pick, Lee Yeru, and a first-round pick from Vegas, 2026.
I don't get it.
So I wanted to go through all of this, right? I want to start this by saying, let's give her a round of applause in terms of Kelsey Plum, in terms of her time here with Las Vegas. Multi-time All-Star, 2-time WNBA champion, several times, 2-time Olympic gold medalist as well. As you mentioned before, I seen Callie, shout out to Callie Finn as well. Give her a round of applause with the RJ. You just said it. I've talked about it. Callie tweeted about it. KP and her energy around the team. First of all, her energy is big. So if KP's in a bad mood, you feel it. If KP's in a good mood, you feel it. KP is one of those people who always gave, at least for me, what I needed as a reporter. You got something for me?
So it was the Storm who got the number 2 pick.
Yes.
Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
So essentially, the Sparks gave up the number 2 pick for Kelsey Plum.
Yeah.
If
I'm not getting Paige Beckers. They're like, I don't want it.
You could probably have gotten Paige Beckers. Does she want to go to Dallas? That's very much a conversation in the air. I don't think it ever amounts to anything, but you could have gotten in her ear, especially with her best friend Nika Moole there.
Aside from the fact that it's LA. It's LA.
It's LA, yeah, but it's the Sparks.
So I'm gonna take it.
The Sparks have a lot to go, and I think,
I'm not lie. We're going LA first, so we are going LA first. So you think what?
I think Kelsey is good enough to carry her own team, but they need so much. They were desolate last year, and obviously part of that was the fact that Cam Brink wasn't.
Okay, so you add somebody back. Talk to me. Keep going.
They definitely
had an all-star in terms of De'Erica Hamby, which is my next point.
But I don't know if De'Erica Hamby's going to have all-star production next year with Plum taking some of that production. Part of the reason why I think Hamby was such a surefire all-star this past season was because she was the only player.
And this is where I slightly disagree from the standpoint of I'm worried about the development of Cameron Brink, because Cam is going to come back and Cam might be in a predicament where she's relied on to set picks and rebound the ball and obviously defend at the rim. But I disagree about the De'Erica Hamby point. I think De'Erica is going to be an all-star for maybe a couple more years, just from the standpoint of, especially because I think this move revitalized and reinvigorated her a little bit. And I just saw De'Erica a couple of weeks ago, now that I think about it. So De'Erica is going to be, and this is going to sound crazy to you, maybe, because you're here in Vegas. And this may sound crazy to some people in general. But if you watch, as you mentioned before, because I watch a lot of basketball in general, if you watch what she meant to the Spark, excuse me, all they're trying to do is recreate what A'ja Wilson was doing out here with KP in terms of the pick and roll. In terms of, we have a bucket down low in De'Erica. We have a bucket in terms of KP that can go get one whenever she wants, but can also play distributor when she needs to. One thing I do want to get to when we talk about Jewell Loyd, people don't talk about and address enough how much we talk about KP being a dog, right? What's one of the things that we say about Luka? Not that he can't play defense. Luka, do you try?
Luka's like messy,
like,
and he's like,
the world
like
will probably
a
be
striker,
sloppy. It's
like
unfortunate.
a striker, like just sitting back there, not playing any defense, just waiting for the kill.
But I always disagree. That's kind of fun. That's really funny, actually. I disagreed from the standpoint when people discussed it about James Harden. In Houston, there were absolutely sometimes James Harden did not try. I mean, you want me to score 60 on the other end, right? So I'm not trying. Every other year, especially this year, right? Even his year in Philly, James Harden tries on defense. So that's one thing that I don't think people are talking about enough. You had a perimeter player that will chase the other best perimeter player if need be. Jackie is going to get that assignment. But there were times that KP would pick up Breanna Stewart. Didn't work out in her favor when it would go down low, but he's a pest. So that's what LA is getting, right? Again, we disagree kind of on the De'Erica Hamby point, only because I believe she can still do what she did last year, only because, like you just said before, it was kind of desolate, right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm worried about Cam Brink's development. Because now going into this offseason, I think you're going to get two-man game. Boom. You guys. Boom. We're going to fill you. Okay, we got a shooter here. Okay, we got a backup big here. Cam, I need you to defend and rebound. Okay, but I can do so much more than that. I need you to defend and rebound. Cool. Okay, but I can do so much more than that. That's what I'm worried about. Do the Sparks go and make the playoffs this year? I don't know. But in terms of De'Erica Hamby being joined by her best friend in KP, one last point that I'll add, 2 media days ago, I asked KP when I had the interview with Natalie Williams, I asked KP about the position that she was in to obviously want to support her best friend. First time on a team without her best friend. And I also think that's not talked about enough either. She's only played 2 seasons without her best friend. I lied, 1 season without her best friend. No, I lied. It was 2 seasons.
2, yeah.
It was 2 seasons. I don't know why I thought it was championship years. So 2 seasons. I asked her about the position of wanting to support her best friend. Obviously something that's super severe, something that could also change the way the league handles things going forward. But also you're trying to chase a back-to-back title at the time, right? Like you're trying to chase a back-to-back title at the time. Like you're trying to do all these different things. How do you kind of juggle that? And KP was like, I mean, both things are true. Like I support my best friend. I'm there for her. As far as this, I'm proud to be a member of the Las Vegas Aces. We're doing special things. It's the best organization, whatever. She said everything she needed to say. The thing that I find interesting, and I know nobody wants to talk about it now because we all just want to talk basketball, that lawsuit is a real thing. Yeah. One of the things that we kept saying was, are people going to talk now that they're out of the organization?
That's true.
Tyler Marsh is no longer in the organization. Kelsey Plum is no longer in the organization. Natalie Williams is no longer in the organization. Our guy, Jiggy, is no longer in the organization. There's a lot of people who are no longer in the organization. I'm just saying, if there were a time where the Aces, if they did do anything wrong during that De'Erica time, to be nervous, this might be it. And then I have and then this is the Aces next. And into the second point, and we'll end with Seattle.
I would say the Aces may avoid that humiliation of I'd say like a Soprano style turn from one of their ex-employees, because it would make those employees look horrible. If they, like Kelsey Plum, this was De'Erica's best friend.
Yeah.
Best friend. And I mean, there were rumors that like the last 2 years that there was some spats between them. Like they unfollowed each other on Instagram. Obviously that doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But like, I would be surprised if there wasn't like contentious conversations between the two of them about what happened.
So I just want to ask you really quick. You said that it would make the ex-employees look worse, right?
Yeah, because Kelsey
In
Plum
terms of
went in the
KP.
media and defended Becky Hammon ardently. Like there's a clip of Kelsey Plum that went around at WNBA Twitter this offseason where she was not like this season when those allegations really got rolling.
Yeah.
Where Kelsey Plum is ardently like whatever they might have clipped it, they
Yeah.
might have picked what they wanted to hear.
Mm.
She's ardently defending Becky, and it wasn't a great look for her. Like
This is what I'll say. Could KP absolutely defend Becky Hammon and say Becky didn't do that? De'Erica, or she's not even naming her by name, but in terms of Becky saying we let her sit out of practice if she wanted to, we let her not show up to practice if she wanted to. What if KP can corroborate all of those things happen? Becky is getting the brunt of this for no reason. What if somebody comes to her and they say, "Hey, is it true that you guys were told to stop talking to De'Erica?" Yeah. Is it true that they snatched team housing from De'Erica? Yeah. Both things can be true. I can still help her in terms of saying the rest of this happened. This Becky point, all right, you trying to take down the ship, dog. Like this, Becky ain't do nothing. When I talked to Natalie was like, I didn't hear about mistreatment until the social media post that you're referring to. I gave Natalie one more chance. Okay, so wait a minute. So you're saying when De'Erica was here, you didn't hear about any of this? She's shaking her head the whole time. I heard about it when you did.
I would guess like who was responsible for providing like the housing and like
and that's like that. The housing point.
It wasn't Becky or that. If it wasn't Becky or Natalie, who was the one that was taking that right away? Like who was?
Not that. Nothing like that. Again, I'm not saying Mark did any of this, and history has shown Mark to not do things like this, right? But it could be Mark. It could be anybody. Is my only point, right? And my only point is, let's just say, Will, you're the head of housing for the Talk That Talk media company. We got somebody who's not only trying to leave, i.e., a Jimmy Butler, but they're kind of sullying our name on the way out. Let's just say that, sure, I run the company, I own the company, whatever the case may be. I dictate who gets housing. Let's just say you feel a way about De'Erica, about anybody else that I said Jimmy a second ago, that's acting up in terms of the business. Let's say you come up with something and now housing is being stripped. Let's say I am Becky Hammon in Becky Hammond's seat. I may not have done it. I also may not have stopped it.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I guess like the WNBA is not like the NFL or the NBA in the term where these organizations are like multi-tiered, like just legit like Fortune 500 level like executive branches. Like these teams are like almost like mom and pop shops.
A lot of them are.
So like in the sense that like I could see it being Becky who was like calling these shots and dictating these like moves, because I really like I don't know this for sure, but I don't think that would be something that Mark is directly involved in.
No, I just said I don't think. I believe Mark has the ability to. Is my only point.
Yeah,
like I just said, Mark's history, number one, has shown it's not really what he does. In fact, he does the opposite. Right.
Yeah.
My second point that I would add is I don't want to say personally, because how do I do this? I'll do this. I personally know Mark Davis in a professional sense. That's email jargon right there. I personally know Mark Davis in a professional sense.
You can just say you know him professionally.
Yeah, but see, no, because that's why I was about to say. I wanted to say personally because I have had conversations with him, and just if you get a feel, if you get a feel for Mark Davis, like you just said, he seems like I don't want to deal with that. No way. Somebody do that. He's like most company owners.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. You do it. That's what I pay you for. So I don't believe Mark did it, but I'm just saying it could have been anybody. But in terms of the Becky Hammon point, like I said before, do I think she may have done it? No. Do I think Becky might have got wind of it and was like, it's happening to who? Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. I mean,
like I said before, one thing, and as a person, I just said I loved Becky before she got here, right? From a personal sense, like one of my favorite W Hoopers type, right? One of the things that people can never really argue about me, I don't believe, in terms of like playing favorite or being a homer in this sense. Becky Hammon came out and said two things. She talked about that phone call with De'Erica. She said, she asked her was she pregnant or whatever. She said, yeah. She asked her, what'd she say? She asked her, would she be ready by the regular season or how long or were you pregnant last season? Whatever the second question was. Becky said she answered it and she said, all right, I moved on. As much as I love Becky, do you want me to believe that you asked one of your vital key pieces, were they pregnant? They said, yeah. You didn't ask when the due date was. You didn't ask like just certain things. I'm just like, Becky, you want me to believe that? That moved her down on the most honest coaches list.
Yeah.
I was like, Becky, there's no way. Like I told her, I'm not saying that what De'Erica said about you is true, but do you want me to believe that you asked those two questions and then ask nothing else? Ain't no way in hell.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there was definitely cause for concern. That's why the lawsuit is there. So
something happened, and I'm just saying with the KP point, she's standing next to De'Erica now, so she couldn't say anything when it was before. When I'm wearing these Aces colors, and who knows? Like you said before, maybe I'll find some things out in the next couple of weeks. Maybe she did want out. Maybe De'Erica was a portion of her wanting out. Maybe, but going back to the argument point,
I just wonder how much of the public sees that as like a Henry Hill act and like
I mean,
you
people are going to overreact.
You were on the ship and you bailed on the ship and now you're just selling it out. Like I don't know how honorable people would see that anyway. But
was I going down with the ship? She didn't. She did say some teammates stopped talking to her. Are we assuming that KP was one of them when she's about to be her teammate again? Probably not.
I mean, it's probably not, yeah, but I don't know if you can definitively say no, given some of the stuff we saw and heard.
Considering that De'Erica, after since we're talking about social, and I don't like to put too much stock into social, but if we're going to put stock into social, she posted a picture of her and
I was genuinely surprised when I saw that.
Absolutely was not,
because like maybe I've just heard different things, but like
I wasn't shocked at all.
What I heard, there must have been like I don't know. I don't want to get into.
You're good. I don't know why the camera's on me,
but like.
I mean, we can get into it. There
must have been like a reconciliation at some point between them.
Do you feel like best friends don't fight?
But that's like I have fights with my best friend, but I've also had fights with friends that we weren't friends after that.
I agree, but
there were some that I had fights with that where I thought maybe we weren't going to be friends, and then we came back and patched it up.
And that's where I
think
disagree.
That's probably what may have happened here.
And that's where I disagree from the standpoint of. You just said it a second ago in terms of you've had some arguments with some people and you've been like, well, I don't know if we're going to be cool. And you end up being cool with them again. I've had some arguments with some people that I love dearly. And at no point of the argument did I feel like I'm going to lose this friendship. We are in a heated moment. We're at a heated point. We're at probably a space that we've never been in a friendship. We're not losing this though. So, I mean, I don't know. I've had both. Absolutely. I've absolutely had arguments with friends. And by the end of it, I've in the middle of the argument, be like, yeah, this is going to be the last conversation. I can feel this. I'm sure most of us should, especially at our age, should have had that where you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, never going to do this again. So I'm not saying that it can't happen, but just from some of the things that
maybe they never were, maybe they never did go away, but just like, that was a surprising development for me based on what we saw and heard and based on what I saw and heard about how that went down. That was a surprising development to me. And now I would say that you make a good point that, you know, there probably was some like masking going on with Kelsey while she was here, trying to just like preserve both and play both sides of the fence, and that we couldn't really see that.
Like I said, the answer she gave to me was exactly that. I'm trying to. Like I said, I'm a proud member of the Las Vegas Aces.
But I will say about Kelsey, and I was going to bring this up earlier, I don't know if she so much as wanted out in terms of that she needed a fresh start.
And that's my point. She wasn't going to get a fresh start here. That would include what?
No, but that's the point. She wasn't last season. She didn't mesh well with the other guards. She didn't mesh well with Jackie and Chelsea. And it was really the first time we saw that. And that was part of the reason why they weren't really a championship contender truly last year, is because the guard, like the front court outside of Asia, wasn't much of a help. That was a key problem, we know. But the backcourt,
haven't addressed that yet.
The backcourt didn't mesh the way they were supposed to mesh and the way they did mesh. And part of that was because Kelsey was very, very inconsistent at the start of the season without Chelsea to play point guard and anchor that offense. And when Chelsea came back, Kelsey improved a little bit, but she still wasn't Kelsey from 2023.
I also think that last season was an outlier just from the standpoint of Kelsey dealt with a lot. And the funny thing is, I just had this
now that
conversation
said,
with somebody
that's
too.
why she needed a fresh start.
But I agree.
she
I'm
just,
not,
like-
which is why I said I feel like she played her last game as an ace. I feel like the only thing that gets me is she didn't, because everybody was talking, right? All season, what's wrong with KP? What's wrong with KP? What's wrong with KP? In the back of my mind, I'm like, this is obvious. She's going through a divorce. Then it is a public. Then Darren's dropping records. Then Darren's doing interviews. This is during her season.
I would say that also had like that caused maybe turmoil within the team. Like maybe not like
I'm not saying a word.
Like,
I'm with you.
I think
I'm with you under the idea that it could happen.
Like I think that this is a close knit group, right? Like that core, and like you have one player that may not have appeared fully bought in for whatever reason, and she had a very valid reason to not be bought in. That's a heartbreaking situation.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, like I said before, everybody kept having these think pieces. What's wrong with KP? What's wrong with KP? In the back of my mind, I kept saying it. She's going through a lot.
Yeah. When
she started to pick it up, I remember she got up there one time and she kind of laughed and was like, well, everybody knows. She kind of looked at Asia and was like, it's been a tough year for me.
I remember that.
She finally addressed it. And for me, I'm not somebody who's in therapy. If you know me personally, I probably should be. I'm working on that. But I have a lot of friends that's in therapy and they relay some stuff back to me, right? And that's one of the things that I realized when I heard her say it and she kind of joked through it. The reason why she knew the reason why she was struggling to begin the year. You could talk about the injury to Chelsea. You could talk about Chelsea coming back and all those different things. Her finally saying that publicly for the first time, to me, I was like, that's the difference. That's a weight off her shoulder. I remember, and I said this before, I remember when I did my story on Darren, being an Ace of Super fan. I said, who's your favorite player? He was like, Kelsey Plum. He said, why? I'm sitting there that entire press conference and I'm like, I know Kelsey. If I start my question, no matter what my question is, the moment I say Darren Waller, I might lose her. So she's going to hear Darren and she's going to white noise. I didn't hear anything else you asked after that. Okay, what are you asking me? I waited till she was done. She gets up. She's going to the back. I meet her around the back. Yo, KP, real quick. And she kind of hesitant. I was like, I got this question about Darren. Super hesitant. Pale face. I said, I'm doing this story on him. I said, he, being a super fan, he said you were his favorite player, whatever.
When was this?
Before they got married. I'll say that. And you seen her take a deep breath. Like she was holding her breath, dog. And just me knowing the field, I'm not going to put you in that predicament on this stage. She gave me my quote. Everything was cool. After the first parade, I was chilling with Darren. Obviously, after the buses got back, KP was right there. We chilled for a second. That situation is unique. So I'm not going to do that on the stage. So for her to publicly finally say it's been a tough year for me, that was a breakthrough for me. And I said it on this radio show. She's going to be different moving forward with that. So I'm with you in terms of her needing a fresh start. But that was just some of the things that I took away from it that people were like, well, what was wrong with her last year? What was wrong with her last year? It's an outlier. I don't think she's going to get divorced every year. So I think that year was a difficult year for her. And no matter what she does the rest of her career, she's going to look back at her resume and say, yeah, that was a tough year.
Yeah, and I'll just say
I'm expecting Kelsey to be a dog again. I'm expecting Kelsey to win All-Star Game MVP next year.
That's true. That's fair. I would say I do think Jewel is probably as good as a replacement as you can find because, I mean, maybe even an upgrade for what the Aces need.
That's the best possible replacement you can have.
Because, I mean, as far as a pure scorer goes, Jewel is as good as they come. And that's kind of what you were looking for out of Kelsey this past season, that she may not have had the skill set to provide everything off the court aside. Kelsey is a great scorer, but she's not Jewel Lloyd scoring that rock. Let's be real.
And Jewel Lloyd isn't the distributor either,
yes.
Which is the interesting part.
But they have Chelsea Gray. They have Jackie Young.
But you're putting a lot more on Chelsea as well.
You are, but you're also going to have Jewel Lloyd there who could knock down 30 points a game. Like, far more consistently than we could.
And she can do it in an ISO form. I don't necessarily need you, Chelsea, to get me this ball.
Jewel Lloyd is a season removed from being the all-time leading scorer in a single season in WNBA history. The Aces are going to have the 2 leading scorers in a single season in WNBA history on their team next season. And if the rumblings that we're hearing, they might have the old BG.
My dad mentioned that to me as well, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I know it's free agency. If I am Phoenix, I'm doing everything possible, and I know that
I don't
this
think
is
it matters.
You don't think it
He's
matters?
gone.
My dad said the same
He's
thing.
gone.
I'm not mad at it.
The Aces have $400K left. Perfect. They need a front court piece.
Got to get a big.
I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen. I'll say that.
Once my dad mentioned it, I was like, I feel
Like,
it.
there's been like, I won't say like reports, but there's been like, you
Rumblings.
see like the little tweets, the little droppings that come, and then a few days later you'll see the reporting. Like
Like I said, the perfect word.
like
is
Shams
rumblings.
pulled yesterday with the trade, the Annie Costabile or Costabilly, for however I don't know how to pronounce her name. Sorry.
Alexa.
No, that's the ESPN one, Alexa Phillips.
Yeah.
But the Chicago Sun reporter, like her name is Annie Costabilly or something.
Okay.
She broke the trade. Like, she didn't break it necessarily, but she reported yesterday,
Shams did
2
it.
days ago, that this trade was happening. Lloyd, LA,
My dad was telling me it was in a newspaper in LA.
it was in the
It
works.
was happening.
and Shams reports it yesterday, and Alexa and the ESPN
See, everybody
people
else, he was
report it yesterday as if that was the scoop. And I don't know.
I mean,
That's
here's
the game. I get it, but
Here's the thing too, and I'm with you that this is it's the game, but at the same time too, I remember not I remember, but it happens often, right? Depending on, and I told my dad this, and I don't think I'm telling you guys anything new. I told you guys I just started covering the Raiders in person a couple of years ago. This was the first year that I started. Let me take that back. Last 2 years, I started to get some behind the scenes info. I started to get some rumblings here, little heads up here. Okay, cool. It's starting, right? It happens more with the Aces. It happens more with the UNLV, obviously. It happens more with the Nighthawks. It happens more with the Aviators, for damn sure. Things like that, right?
Mhm.
The Raiders, not so much yet. What was the point of me bringing that up? Damn. You were talking about scoops. You said rumblings.
just BG, just
Where's
and
the
the
winner at?
trade, and how that, the game's the game. Sometimes you'll report something.
game is the game.
And then,
When Raider news comes out, I know that there are some people who know me from covering the Raiders. So cool. I never claimed to be like, sure, I'm a Raider beat writer, but if you guys know anything about me running this company, that's why I'm adding so many different people to cover so many different avenues, because I don't really feel like I have a beat. I have to do the Raiders. I have to do UNLV.
that's kind of how
have
I
to do the
am too, in
Aviators.
the sense.
Same
that,
with you, right? I feel like
My
when you have
beat
a
is
beat,
Vegas. and,
that's
like,
my
the
beat.
city.
That's my beat. I feel like the last time I was like embedded with a team was the Ignite. Like, I was at Ignite practices. I knew every single thing about the Ignite. People were texting me directly like, oh, well, I feel like this team might move up. This team is coming to the game tomorrow. They actually might trade. That happened for sure, right? Even that's how Tyler and I kind of got a little bit closer, because I was like, dog, some of the conversations I've had with you, they're not in the W. They're in the other league.
Yeah.
And he'd be sitting there and be like, well, who'd you talk to? I'm not telling you. But I've had these different conversations with different people. So I say all that to say, when, let's say some UNLV news breaks, I do hit my sources.
Yeah.
And I confirm. So in Sham's defense, I am breaking this trade because it was just told
That's
to
fair.
me.
That's fair.
Like, so, but the reason why I brought the Raider news, if Adam Schefter goes out and says the Raiders are hiring Pete Carroll, guess what, guys? I'm reporting it, and I'm saying sources say, or not sources say, I'm saying it's been reported
Yeah.
that this is what's happening. I didn't report this. Nobody hit my phone directly and said Pete Carroll was coming. They did it. So that's the difference in my reporting, the way that I do it. I'll hit the Aces and I'll hit Natalie Williams with the GM at the time. I'll do certain of those and be like, okay, cool, this is confirmed, as opposed to me saying it's been reported.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you got to do it, really, if you don't want to look like a jerk.
I think people are still going to try to make Shams out to be one regardless. But I
mean,
did
that's
find
also
interesting,
kind of just a Shams thing. I mean,
but that what I don't like, and I had this conversation recently, and this show has been beyond fun, so we're kind of off the rails a little bit. The thing that's been beyond fun about that aspect of it is, especially owning a company in this field, you see what we were taught in terms of, oh, well, it has to be this way. It doesn't.
No, not at all. Like that's the one thing I learned really quickly is that like the rules and traditions and the norms and like all this stuff that you hear about in school and coming up, and even when you're a kid, like you think that these are like completely buttoned down like executive operations going on with these media companies, and it's just like we're all just dudes at work.
And that's exactly what it is. And that's basically what it is. But it's just funny from the standpoint of people view it and they're like, oh, well, like the Shams standpoint, right? He had an issue with Woj for when I saw that tweet. And again, I've seen everything. This is the one thing that rubbed me the wrong way. He could have been doing his job. And I'm not saying he's wrong for doing it. But I read that tweet and I seen all the names at the bottom. Sources tell me, Ramona Shelburne, Alexis Philippe, like you're going through Alexa rather, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay.
They really told everyone.
I wonder if, I don't know, Shanae got the scoop, and because Shams is who he is to ESPN, he broke it.
That's exactly what it is.
Which we know, right? But it's the same thing that he was saying about Woj.
It's the same thing that happens with Schefter in the NFL.
Which is my entire point behind the idea of, hey, this is just an illusion. But it goes back to what we said before about the field changing, just from the standpoint of, Shams, you're becoming the person that you hated. That's ultimately what it is. So yeah, there are times, like I said before, one more thing that I'll add, and I always say this. I don't encourage people to do it per se, because the way I'm running my company is the way that I'm running mine. I love the fact that our eyes are on the story. And I don't mean like just physical eyes. I mean, I have our counter on still. I have it on for a reason. This is an up and coming evergreen media company. This is what it looks like. People want you guys to lie. People want to lie to you guys and make it seem like, oh, we're this, we have the scoop, we did it. When I had to cover the Raiders from home during COVID, I told everybody on this show. I emailed them. I'm just waiting on it, y'all. Just wait for it. This is what a media company looks like. We're getting in the door. And now we're in almost every door. Actually, I'm in every door I've attempted to open. So just from that standpoint, like I told my dad, if I wanted to stop this thing today, I did it. I did it. So just from that standpoint, like I said before, that's why I have the eyes up for the stories, because there is absolutely going to come a time, I'm big on transparency, where it's going away. Mm-hmm. Because at some point, those clicks become numbers, and then you guys get to add up numbers. It's going away. So don't get it twisted. But now, yeah, this is what it looks like. You'll see an Aviator story with 7. You'll see a Golden Knight story with 35. You'll see an NBA Summer League story with 79. And then you'll see an NBA feature story 1.9. That's what it looks like. This is the way numbers fluctuate. This is what happens. The Lady Rebels, yeah, you got 4 views. That's what it looks like. Come March, they won't.
100%.
Speaking of, even with this most recent loss, I think this team is headed towards the Mountain West Championship again. UNLV lost for the first time on the road in conference play in 23 games. San Diego State beat them at the buzzer 59-58. Did you watch this hell of a game?
I did not.
I want to throw something at you. I think it was on the Mountain West Network, so you can go back.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I honestly, both basketball programs, I haven't really tuned in as much as I should.
You scared the hell out of me. I thought you were about to be like, I have no faith in either. I was about to be like, in either one?
I just haven't. Like, I mean, I'll be honest. I've never had to cover the Lady Rebels.
You should. You want to?
So,
you want to come out there?
I mean,
shout out to Kevin Kelly, who covered a Lady Rebel game for me earlier this year. Shout out to Kev.
So I've never had to like really dive into them as much. I mean, the men's team, I'm kind of just a column. Like at the Sporting Tribune, I've kind of like turned into a columnist now. So I'm not really like a specific beat writer. Like I'm on the Raiders beat. and the Aces beat. So that'll be like the teams I really stick to. But for as far as like UNLV, I'll just do like a column here and there.
Well, yeah, because I mean, and at the same time too, you're watching from a standpoint, from a unique standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And just let's talk about this really quick. It was a buzzer beater, and I'm gonna be completely honest. And I don't know if Lindy listens to the show or not, but just to let her know, I had text for the interview. Did not see them text me back and say calling you, like, yeah, like confirm it, and then say calling you now. So I'm sitting down. The men played too, so I'm working on the men's story. My phone rings. I look at my phone. I see it's the program. I said, I got to do this one off the cuff. Like, I wasn't even thinking. Like, I sent the text like maybe third quarter.
Yeah.
So it slipped my mind. Then, of course, when the game was over and I'm done with my notes, now I'm working on the men's story. Fam, they called. And obviously, this is not one of those situations where I could just be like, all right, Lindy, hold on, give me a second. I'm not even ready.
Yeah.
It's after a loss. So I'm like, ooh, on the fly. How do I figure this out? First question that comes to mind. This is what goes through mine before I even get to the question. First thing that goes through my mind was, well, okay, Lindy, 9 straight wins, 8-0 in the Mountain West to start the year, 22 consecutive road wins, and you lose it all on the buzzer beater. That's what's in my mind. And I kind of talked to her about it. I said, well, how do I form this into a question, right? That's another thing, too. People swear up and down that they could do our jobs, and then you hear the way these people talk. Cool. Ask Greg Popovich that, the exact way you just asked me.
No, yeah, that I would say like that's the toughest part of the job is just like managing each personality and how you talk to them and like.
Absolutely. Because the funny thing is, I remember I asked Becky, since we talked about KP earlier, right? Somebody told me that KP didn't, maybe now I can get a little bit more personal. Somebody said that they felt like KP was mad at me last year. First time that somebody told me that, maybe twice, I was like, what are you talking about, fam? And then I started to notice, like, damn, maybe I kind of am getting a cold shoulder. What did I start this by telling you? When she got off that podium and I ran to her and I said, hey, I'm doing this story on who?
Darren.
When I told you after the first parade, when she got off the buses and we were sitting there talking, who was I sitting there talking with?
Darren.
I told my dad by the second time that I realized it, I said, dog, I don't think, because KP was a professional last year with me.
Yeah.
She never gave me anything weird. One time I might even highlight, but one time I felt like she gave me something weird, but in my mind, I don't care. I'm doing my job. Like, my job ain't to please you. So even if you do feel away, not really worried about it.
Yeah.
But when people started to tell me at first, I was like, or when 2 people told me at first, I was like, well, I don't know. It hit me middle of the game one time. I told my dad, I said, dog, every 60% of the time that I saw KP that year, I was with Darren. She may not even see me and feel like I'm not close to Darren. That's not like my guy. But when he was the Raider, he was one of the closest Raiders that I was close to. But I told my dad, that's not a personal thing for me. She's not mad at me.
Yeah.
But do I believe that her makeup and just what she was going through when she saw me, it was no positive feelings? Hell yeah. Had nothing to do with me, though.
Yeah.
But I get it. So I'm saying that just from a standpoint, just in terms of how we got to do our job, right, and how difficult it is. So I'm thinking about all these different things. I don't want to ask Lindy about losing streaks, losing those losing streaks, those win streaks, whatever the case may be. I said, so I did kind of paint the picture. Obviously, road win streak, undefeated in Mountain West play, comes down to the final possession. Like I told her, everybody played it straight up. Nobody came and helped. Everybody played they played the ball handler. It was Macy James on her. I said, is that one of those plays that at the end of it, you just kind of tip your cap? You got that one. She said, the kid made a hell of a shot. Like, every player on our team did exactly what we asked of them. They made the shot. You shrug, you move on.
100%.
You shrug, you move on. That sounds like a team that's 16-5 on the year and 8-1 in the conference. They're still in first place, but, and even let's talk about Macy James for a split second before we get to the men's team. Macy James had, pause. Let me go back 1 second. I had asked Lindy earlier this year, game like 8. I said, Lindy, It's my job to chronicle the team. I'll take that back, guys. I'm probably embedded with the Lady Rebel team more than I am the men's team. But if I had to say that was a beat, it's probably one of my beats, right? But I told her, I said, hey, so 8 games in, I'm trying to figure out rotation. I said, and I don't know if you figured it out, but you don't have the same like 6 player every game. Like it's a new person every game. And she was like, nah, like it's some way this matchup. Like we're trying to figure it out. Kind of coach speak, right? Mm-hmm. I'm still doing my job. I'm still watching. And I start to realize, Macy's the first one off the bench every game. And then I start to realize, Macy had 2 points this game. Macy had 7 this game. Macy's on the court first off that bench because of her versatility defensively. She guarded that. But please go back and watch that game.
I will. I gotta.
This was perhaps her best, just in terms of fluid, right? Just in terms of fluidity. I think this was her best offensively fluid game. Just so happens she's on the wrong end of a highlight to end it when knowing she's in the game because of her. And Kelsey and Lindy said it. Lindy said she's in the game because of her defensive ability. Plain and simple. And then she alluded to the last play again. Kid made a hell of a shot. Macy did exactly what we asked her to do. It didn't go in our favor. I also asked her about the next game, considering that they don't lose very often. The next one is against UNR. It's at home. I said, you're coming off of a loss, and you get a week to think about it. Lindy wanted to highlight the fact we get a week. We played 3 games this week. I'm just happy to get the week off.
Yeah.
I said, from that standpoint, we might be in store for some fireworks on Saturday. That's February 1st, 2 p.m. from the Cox Pavilion. I have to double check. It might be the Thomas and Mack, but the Lady Rebels, fresh off of a loss. It's a week off. And now they bring in the hated Wolfpack, right? So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to let you start this point because I got to run out for 2 seconds. But, oh yeah, I know. We got 9 minutes left. Well, 8 minutes left in the show. We started YouTube right after. That's why. But I'm going to run out for 1 second. But we have to address this. There's no way we're going to mention the Lady Rebels and their highs, even with this loss. Unfortunately, we had this conversation a second ago. This men's team, some people have been mad at me for some of the things that I've said about the team recently. But even after those 2 big wins against Utah State and San Diego State, I said, I feel like I'm watching the Minnesota Timberwolves. And what I meant by that was, I don't know if I'm watching a good team.
I do. You're not.
And then this team comes out and loses back-to-back games, no less home games, against Wyoming and New Mexico. And as soon as I get back, we can break down this New Mexico loss and we can get out of here.
I'm not even sure like the results are the biggest problem at this point. Like I wrote this article yesterday about how you revitalize the program, and it starts with just like it starts literally with getting fans in the building, and you're not going to get any fans in that building with this current program and the momentum it's on. Kevin Kruger has no inspiration among the fan base. The fan base doesn't want him here. And I said in my article that it's like when I walk into the Thomas and Mack Center nowadays, there's less than 1,000 paying fans. And it's just such a stark contrast from when I was a kid and I was growing up in upstate New York in love with college basketball. And I'm watching this UNLV team face Jimmer Fredette and BYU and Kawhi Leonard and San Diego State. And it's just like a packed Thomas and Mack Center. And they have these cardboard cutouts in the crowd. And it's just like an atmosphere that made me want to move from New York to Las Vegas to attend school there. And I walk into this building now and there's 500 people there and it just looks like a coffin crypt. It looks like the ruins of a great Coliseum, I believe I said. And it's just sad. And you see what this whole program turned into. Yeah, I mean, what I would look for in a coach, probably, you want someone young from a mid-major who has a lot of, and I saw someone on Twitter say this, I believe one of the burner members, so I'll give them credit, but they were saying that they want a young guy who has mid-major experience who can come and bring with a couple underclassmen from that mid-major team, sort of like what Danny Sprinkle in Utah State, like those type of guys. I would say you just want a guy that has experience winning at the Division I level You don't want a guy who's never ran a program before. And I said specifically, you probably want to stay away from anyone who has any ties to this program in the past whatsoever. Like, I feel like when you look for that head coach, you're looking like UNLV specifically has kind of wanted to always hire UNLV's own, like a UNLV son. They can't do that.
Never mind.
They couldn't do that this time. They have to just completely go outside of the box and get someone new.
You're talking about revitalizing the program.
I was just talking about my article yesterday, so I was just going through it.
No, as you should. First of all, round of applause for that. But I want to highlight. Talk about bringing in some underclassmen, but I want to highlight the underclassmen. One of the underclassmen that they have on the roster right now, and that's obviously DJ Thomas, right? It's hard to talk about certain things from the standpoint of this is our job, yes. However, somebody told me recently, actually, my OG Steve Weiss told me, remember when you're covering the Max Crosby, essentially, just like I'm paraphrasing, but like remember when you're covering the Max Crosbys of the world, and remember when you're covering the DJ Thomases of the world. One is 18 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So from that standpoint, we have to tell the story just in terms of chronicling the team. Yes, he's had some misses at the end of games, in the regulations, in the overtime, whatever. That plain and simple, UNLV should probably not have even been there, right? Now, just in terms of, I don't even want to say inexcusable, but just in terms of what most basketball fans would do in a given moment like this, I remember DJ missed a pair of free throws last season in a moment, in a situation like this, last second, game on the line, clink those free throws, right? I talked about him closing games later this year or earlier this year as well. But one of the things that I mentioned to Kevin last year, when Kevin was talking to me about it, he said, or I asked him how much was that big for just growing pains. You got to go through things. You got to have those stories. And he was like, it's big for his development. He's somebody who's going to be the focal point of our program. This is somebody who's going to be the face of our program. He's going to have to go through these moments. We're in year 2 and he's still going through these moments. There's about 5 moments right now that I could think of, maybe 6. 2 or 3 of them occur at the free throw line where DJ, I'm not going to say he lost games, where DJ could have won games or sent them into overtime at the free throw line. He didn't do it. I watched that missed free throw Saturday. And in the back of my mind, I said the same thing I said last year. He's 19 years old. Last year, I seen him clank those free throws and said, he's 18 years old. Goes back to what I asked Kevin Kruger earlier during non-conference. A, do you guys want DJ to be your closer? And B, since he already is, did you expect him to be your closer this late? He said no, that he was, I don't want to say surprised, but like he was pleasantly surprised. Let's say that DJ filled that role. But these are the moments why a 19-year-old shouldn't necessarily be in that role. Not this makeup. Do I believe that, like I said, DJ is going to be the closer moving forward? Absolutely. He's already the closer now. But this is kind of what we've been talking about in terms of the makeup of this team. DJ is being required to, or is being asked to do a lot and being required to do a lot way earlier than expected.
But I would counterpoint that by saying there's 19-year-olds and 18-year-olds in college basketball who are doing just as much.
I'm not mad at that point. Not mad at that point at all. Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had another point. I'm not mad at that point at all. I was just going to say the makeup of this team matters.
Yeah.
And that's my difference. Do I believe that he could do this somewhere else? What are those power forward conferences? 100%. Hell yeah. Talent would be different around him.
That's true, but I also think he would. I don't know how great he would be.
And I don't think he would be a leading scorer there.
I think one thing we found from DJ at UNLV is that he's probably less mature than is needed to be like a legitimate first round prospect, which is what his ceiling was when he came here, which is where he was mocked at times last season and even before this season, this summer. And obviously now that's a pipe dream. But like when I look at DJ, I see a great basketball player, but I don't. You see a 19-year-old, and with him, it looks 19. Like you'll see a guy like I don't know, even Donovan Dent on New Mexico, or like
who gave us 34.
Just thinking about great guards around the country, like Janai Broom. like Janai Broom might be 20, 21 years old.
Right.
He's a grown man. I don't look at DJ and I don't see a grown. When I look at DJ, I don't see a grown man. I see a kid.
Yeah, and, I mean, and for whatever it's worth, that's what he is right now.
It is, and
That's what he is right now.
it's just concerning too because I mean that was kind of what his father's frame was, just small. But his father was probably even quicker, not as good, not as polished, but his father was quicker, and he played for those up tempo teams.
By the way, really quick, completely random. Let me do this first. UNLV's next game, they're on the road now to take on an Aggie team that has only lost twice this season, albeit one time was to the Rebels, but now they're going to Logan to take on the Utah State Aggies. That game is scheduled for Wednesday, January 29th, 7 p.m. Again, the Aggies are 18-2 this year. We're getting ready to get out of here. Sorry, guys, I wasn't able to give you guys too much of the night news. I do just want to let you know really quick, if you guys were waiting for this, for the VGK portion of the show, they most recently beat Florida 4-1. They were up 2-0 after the first two periods. They did add an empty netter at the end of that third period. Aiden Hill picked up his 19th win of the season, which ties a career high. Your Knights this season are 31-15-4 on the year, good for 66 points. That's just 1 point higher than the Edmonton Oilers, who sit right behind Vegas in the Pacific Division at 65 points. The hated Dallas Stars will be in town on Tuesday. Tomorrow is the 20. So I lied. I said 26, right? Is today the 26th or 27th?
It is the 27th.
Dog, I said the 26th. Sorry, guys. I think it's even labeled on YouTube as the 26th. My apologies. Let you know when I drew this show up. But yeah, guys, it will be tomorrow from the Fortress, 7 p.m. The Stars and the Knights are 1-1 this year. I got my dad's tip in, and we can get out of here, Will. Before we do that, I got some numbers for you really quick, because I did this earlier and I completely forgot to tell you. So, Drew Brees in 5 years with the Chargers.
Oh, we're going back here. Hit me.
He was 30-28 overall, or 30-28 with a win. His win-loss record. He had 80 touchdowns and 53 interceptions. That man was Eli Manning.
Eli Manning's a Hall of Famer
without the Super Bowls. Don't you dare! I knew you was about to say it. Don't you dare! Don't disrespect Drew Brees, sir. Don't do that.
Fair enough. I would say, yeah, fair enough.
He was Eli Manning, dog. Now, if you ask me that about Drew, do I think that he would have been a Hall of Fame? Yeah, he would have been that. He would have been Hall of Fame, dog. He would have went down in complete flames if he would have stayed a Charger, kind of the way Phillip Rivers did. And I think Phillip Rivers ultimately, is he in yet? No, right?
Phillip Rivers is not in. I don't know if Phillip Rivers will ever get in.
And that's what's interesting, because I feel like Phillip Rivers will get in because people adore him for whatever reason. I think Phillip Rivers was going to be that one that I'm not even going to give a name, but like, I'm sure we have these moments with uncles, parents, just whatever, right? Where you look up and you be like, oh, well, so-and-so's a Hall of Famer. And that person is like, I ain't no damn Hall of Famer.
Now, how much different would Phillip Rivers' resume be than what Stafford would have ended up being had he stayed in Detroit for his whole career?
Now, that is a great question. I think that it would have been probably identical, which is why I think Matt makes it. I told you before, I think Matt makes it as a Lion. I think Phillip makes it.
I agree with that.
I'm going to be that old grumpy guy. Wasn't no damn Hall of Famer. I know what that paper says, but I watched him. I'm going to be that guy. But that was just my entire point. Damn, that's a good question now. YouTube, Twitter in the chat. Everybody keep sending us those questions. Keep tweeting those random things, because you can create an hour worth of content on a radio show. So who knows? My dad's tip in for today. Here we go. Super Bowl 59, the best of the NFC against the best of the AFC. The Cinderella season that was Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders is over, and the clock has struck midnight. The high-powered Buffalo Bills Mafia, powered by Josh Allen, have been put to bed with no dinner. That was kind of funny. The mighty Baltimore Ravens running attack has had the brakes put on them. The Philadelphia Eagles have just what they needed in Saquon to push them over the edge and make them a powerful Super Bowl contender. With him in the backfield, the sky is the limit. My dad said, I bet you Jerry didn't call him either. That really quick. when I said that if I was Stephen Jones, I would have that list of things like moments that, like for instance, with Jerry Jones, I think the only person that can take the reins from him is Steven. I really do. But I would take Johnny Manziel, his name, and I would put Zach Martin. I would take didn't call Derrick Henry and who we got left with. I would just do that all down the line, right? And show Jerry the cause and effect. We would have had Johnny Manziel if I didn't step in. We got a Hall of Fame offensive lineman. And I would just give him the list. And I would ask him, at what point? Like, do I got to get to like 0.76 for you to give it up? But this is what I would do with him. And my dad is probably, that's why, like I said, I would do it because my dad is probably looking at somebody like a Saquon thinking, did you view him the same way that you view Derrick Henry? We didn't need him. Even though there have been grumblings all season that the Kansas City Chiefs are getting preferential treatment or calls from the officials, and they don't have that explosive firepower that they had in an offensive end in years past. Doesn't really matter. After all the smoke is cleared, here they stand. They will be playing in their third Super Bowl in a row, flirting with something that has never been done in the NFL before, and that is a three-peat. Pause my dad's tip in for 1 second. You kind of just chuckled about it too. I got to be completely honest. As much as we gave Patrick Mahomes all the credit in the world for being who he was against Tampa Bay that Super Bowl, I was sick to my stomach. Watch, and my brother, I know what he's gonna text me and say. I'm a basketball guy. My brother's a football guy. I told him, I said, hey, I don't like when football players get tackled. And this is when we were growing up. I don't like when football players get tackled and they put the football up here.
Yeah.
We saw where you got tackled, dog. Like, I don't know why you're doing that. My brother was like, I hate when y'all flail your arms and fall to the ground. Touche. You got that. That's a great point. I'm going to be honest with you. People say whatever they want about Brady. I have never seen anybody do what Patrick Mahomes did against the Houston Texans. I've never seen a football player flopping around for a call. I've never seen it in my life.
I've seen Josh Allen do it.
Maybe I need to watch it more because I promise you, dog, I watched that game egregious, and I was like, this is disgusting.
I agree. It's egregious. And it's just like, what happened to the sport? Or it's just like,
I told my brother, we're meant to be soft. And basketball players, we're supposed to, hey!
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I like the gladiator NFL.
That's what it's meant for.
I don't want to see, like,
you don't want to see safety?
I'll stop.
Let's go back to my dad's tip in. As I stated before, the Eagles have Saquon, but the Chiefs have a weapon in Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Do they? They might have the former. I don't know about the latter. He said a weapon besides. Pardon, my bad, Dad. Besides Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and that is Andy Reid. He said with him at the helm, the impossible is possible. He said, watch out, Belichick and Brady. Hear those footsteps yet? The Chiefs are coming for your titles. Shout out to my dad for that tip in, real in depth. I feel like my dad could have sent that tip in on Thursday. Well, next Thursday, right ahead of the Super Bowl. I think it was a perfect kind of prelude for what we're probably going to see 2 Sundays from now. But I will end it with this really quick. Dad, I won't let you get away from this. I won't let you get away from it. I remember you were that guy when I was growing up. Will, as we talk about the old grumpy guy, right? I remember when you told me Andy Reid couldn't coach. I remember. I was a kid. And as a Cowboy fan, I got why you said it. Now, go back and read that last sentence on your tip in one more time. This is what I mean. Sometimes a person can have their story halfway written, and then a switch is hit. Going back to your Saquon point, Saquon might prepare himself to number 1 or 2 that we've ever seen, as opposed to the argument that we were having earlier about whether he would be disputedly a top 20 running back. He might end up 1 or 2 when this is all said and done if he's doing this. This is my point that I'm making to my dad about the Andy Reid point. Andy Reid may go down as the GOAT when this is all said and done.
I don't like hearing that.
Until next time, guys. Keep on talking.
It is be crazy.